Hello and welcome to our very first episode of the Mehdia Consumers. I'm Jonathan Bosco.
And I'm Graham Hubert. Thank you for listening. All right, we're done. See ya.
That's it. We're complete. That was our first episode. Hope you liked it. Please comment, subscribe, follow us.
Rate, follow.
A bit
follow
of
me on
everything.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Subscribe to my Chatterbait channel, please.
Since
It's the only way I can make money.
Since this is our first episode, let's just explain a bit about who we are. We are, in fact, calling ourselves the Mehdia Consumers because we are proud consumers of media, and we like to put ourselves through that media all the time. Essentially, we're just going to be tearing apart various pop culture things, music, movies. Maybe not always tearing apart, maybe sometimes really giving lots of love to it, too.
Absolutely. Maybe like drawing love to something maybe people never heard of, drawing love to something people despise. That would be very exciting. And we're just going to shoot the shit. We're completely irreverent, and we do not put ourselves on a pedestal.
No, I take my opinion very humbly.
And I take yours very humbly, and I don't take mine at all. I know I'm bullshit. It's all good.
I don't think my opinion is right, man. What are you gonna do? And we've got a really big one today. We're starting with a doozy today.
It's Inception, Christopher Nolan's 2010 epic Inception.
I already know we're gonna get a lot of flack for this one, so I feel like I need to start the podcast just by saying this. If you have a different opinion than us, that's okay. We don't share your opinion. That's fine.
That is better than okay. In fact, if you have a different opinion than us and you disagree with something, please share your opinion because we want to discuss this. I can say a whole bunch of shit about Christopher Nolan. He's personally not my favorite, but he definitely takes risk, much more so than compared to other mainstream American filmmakers. So give him credit for that. The fact that we can have so many things to say about Inception, and we will, is sort of like a testament to, this man's vision, for better or for worse.
Yeah, we have a lot of things to say about this film.
Yes. Bosco in particular, he bothered to take notes.
I
will.
4 pages of notes on my end.
And I was going to, and then I fell asleep. I fell asleep during this film. I'll be straight up. I know what happens. Don't worry. This won't be a hack podcast. I do know what happened in this film. I do have things to say, but
if we're gonna be honest, I clocked out a few times during this film. It was like my 3rd time watching it, so yeah, I already knew what was happening. But there was definitely a lot of times I just completely clocked out. I was just like, I'm not following anymore. I went on my phone, got up to make some supper at the same time.
And this is people were insane about this film. You remember 2010?
People are still insane about this film. What are you talking about? Every time it comes up that I mention to somebody, I don't even say Inception is bad. I'm just like, oh, Inception is just an okay movie. And people go nuts. They go insane. They're like, how dare you think this of my favorite film? They attack you almost. It's the most absurd thing I've ever seen.
Right now, I think it's a bit kind of moderated. I remember the school, we were talking about Christopher Nolan, I'm like, Inception isn't that great, and they'd be like, yeah, that's cool, but I still think it's a masterpiece. And the guy I was talking with, he's like, it's not the best directed film. Bit of an understatement. But he's like, yeah, it's still pretty good. He's still a very intelligent film. And a lot of criticism that's thrown at people who dislike the film is it's typical, oh, you probably don't understand it.
Yeah.
Or
it's what's not to understand? They explain everything in the movie.
Exactly.
Non-stop.
They explain fucking everything. The whole movie's exposition. You have no excuse not to understand it. And I do understand the plotting.
Everything is explained. They stop the movie so many times just to explain every little. I'll talk about it later, but there's a point in the film where they just completely stop to explain what the totems are for 5 minutes. It's this is unnecessary.
I struggle to think of points in this film where it actually feels like people talking to each other, human beings talking to each other. Those are kind of often the best parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Or they sound like characters, but for the most part, this is just it's a plot summary of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's my main issue. I can understand it. Okay, I can understand the plot. I can understand the death. What I don't understand is stuff like character motivation.
There are no characters. These people aren't characters. They're very wooden cardboard cutouts. They're all defined by just what their jobs are mainly.
Exactly.
And they don't have any sense. That's the thing I was noticing about this film as I was going through it. There's no sense of the subtext. There's no subtext does not exist in this film at all. It's everything is said. It's upfront. The only time that there's any subtext is with what's his name? Is it Cillian or Cillian?
Cillian Murphy.
Okay, Cillian Murphy. The only time there's
the one
subtext
human
is
in this
Robert.
movie, the one living, breathing human who acts like a human and seemingly thinks like one.
He's the only character in the entire film that I was actually invested. Every time he came up, I was like, "Whoa, okay, what's gonna happen with his character?" But other than that, like.
And of course he gets fucked over in the end. Like
the one likable character in the whole film gets fucked over. Like anymore.
Without any moral consequence. Like the moral ambiguity of this movie, like, it's not morally ambiguous. Like moral ambiguity implies that you can interpret it either way. No, this film isn't morally ambiguous. It's fundamentally like immoral. And that's not an overstatement. Like, it basically says that you can manipulate people, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it's not just that it's completely immoral in that attitude, but like the main characters are just assholes. Like Sato's an asshole, and we're supposed to be on his side, and Cobb is just a humongous prick the whole film. Like,
oh my god.
Wait, before we get into it though, I want to go back to like the Christopher Nolan fans, because that's part of like the thing that's really difficult. Like when you mention like Inception is just an okay film, and like the fans like you said, they attack you and like, oh, you didn't understand it and stuff. And but I've also gotten the really funny response of they'll turn it around and they'll be like, oh yeah, what's your favorite film? As if that has like anything to do with saying Inception.
As if there's like there's like a set number of movies that you can declare as your favorite.
Exactly.
Like
it's like if Pulp Fiction, Inception, Darren Aronofsky's. What's the drug one? Oh shit! How am I forgetting this?
Oh wait, the drug one?
Requiem for a Dream. Yeah. But that's the thing, like I hate that question when the fans are like, "Oh, what's your favorite?" Because they're only asking so they could be like, "Oh yeah, well that movie sucks." Like they're just gonna throw it in your face without any thought, and it's so absurd in the sense that. Every time I'm like, Inception's okay, they always ask, why? The 50 million whys. And you give all these reasons, but never once have they ever tried explaining to me why is it a good film or why is it a masterpiece. Because every time you throw that back at them, they have no answer. They're always like, and they always kind of give the answer of like, well, obviously it's a masterpiece. Like, if you think otherwise, how could you even think otherwise? And it's like, but that's not an argument. That doesn't convince me in any way possible. Like, every time I ask someone, I'm like, so tell me, why is it a masterpiece? Because it's mind-blowing. Okay, well, what made it so mind-blowing? Well, it's a dream within a dream within a dream. And I'm like, well, thanks. You just explained the plot to me. Like, that's...
Yeah.
The plot of the movie is not mind-blowing. Like, I don't understand what's considered so mind-blowing about this film. Maybe I'm just not easily blown in general. Maybe that's... maybe...
Let me take that out of context.
No, please don't.
No, I know exactly what you mean. But, like, what they'll do is they'll say similar, like, very... shallow remarks, but they'll try to pepper it with certain pretension. Like they'll say like, oh, this movie sort of accurately portrays like how film as a medium can be used to portray like our subconscious, and people will look at this movie from 50 years now on and say, oh, this is the quintessential like example of how to like capture a person's like imagination via cinema. I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about? This movie is so fucking literal minded, it captures zero imagination. And we'll get to that, by the way, because I have a crazy story about
great.
Because this is a very people say this is a very original concept. It actually is not. Would you like me to explain why?
But hold on, I was gonna say, like, if we want a better movie that deals with like the mind and memories and stuff, go watch Eternal Sunshine.
Exactly.
I find they do such a better job.
Or Being John Malkovich or something like that.
Being John Malkovich is great.
Where the dreams are actually seemingly like from a person's like subconscious, where it seems like it has some sort of personality to it. Like,
and what's interesting too, like about Eternal Sunshine, they deal with like very difficult and complicated concepts like Inception does, but they never fully just sit there and explain and blah blah blah.
Because it doesn't need to be explained, because there's emotional connection they have these characters.
Exactly. Which this movie fails miserably at doing.
Oh, okay. So, should we just start off like scene by scene?
You know what? Just to get all the crazy Nolan fans out there, why don't we start off with like, what did we actually like about the film? Just so we can say it, so we know there are things that we did like.
I thought that this is a very fine edited film. I'll say that.
The
Like it's
great.
very fluid. Like I never at one point said, "Oh, that's an awkward cut," especially considering like how many different, I guess, like, you know, parallel timelines this fellow's working with. You know, if that wasn't done well, then this movie would have been a complete disaster. But right at the bat, that's like the film's biggest strength, in my humble opinion.
I do have to say the pacing, like, despite the story structure being a huge mess, they still managed to get the pacing done pretty good. Like, it didn't like, I mean, yeah, it got really boring at points, but it wasn't because of the pacing, it's just because the story.
It was because of story, exactly.
Yeah, it's because of script, not because of pacing. So the pacing was really good, too, I found. And just like any Nolan film, like, the cinematography is great. Like, I can't... I like the cinematography.
Elements of it are good. Like, elements are good. Some scenes are really kind of awkwardly undershot. Like, whenever Mal is on the screen, I thought, like...
Don't get me started with the Mal scenes. I'm gonna just...
like, this just looks like it's from any other drama. Like, it's supposed to be, like, a really menacing character.
Yeah. I don't know what Marion Cotillard was doing this whole film.
What is she?
But she was, like, sleepwalking, I think.
She was being Mehdia Consumers like this whole film, and you know, with this kind of character, she should be creepy, she should be very dominating, and instead we get this
soap opera,
you know,
one-dimensional soap opera character.
That wasn't even like, because Mehdia Consumers, she can do like camp pretty well. Have you ever seen La Vie en Rose, which isn't like the best film, but I thought it was a great performance. It was a great performance because she did not hold back. It was so wonderfully over the top.
I think in general, I find her pretty decent. Like, she could have pulled this off much better than she did. So I don't know if it's her fault or it's like Nolan's fault that he doesn't know how to direct actors very well.
I think it's the direction, because like a lot of people are kind of underperforming this film. A lot of really talented actors. What's a great performance in this film? I'm trying to think of like who's like
Cillian Murphy is the only one I can.
Cillian Murphy. Well, that's because the character is properly written.
Sorry, what?
I largely attribute that to the fact that his character is properly written. It's three-dimensional. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, you know, he's rather charming.
Yeah, but he's just naturally charming. Like, he can do nothing, and it's just like charming. So.
But like everybody else, I mean, it's line reading.
Oh, essentially.
It's underutilization. That's what the whole movie is. It's like a great concept underutilized, great actors underutilized, a potentially great story, I think, underutilized.
Oh, you know who was a great actor? The no-name Arab guy at the beginning. I liked him.
I like his.
Well,
I like
3
his
lines.
I liked him. I like his character, and I loved his dream. By the way, that's my favorite dream in the film, because I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be really interesting. We're gonna look into everyone's deepest, darkest fears and nightmares. Like, that guy obviously has some sort of traumatic thing that happened to him, and so we're gonna see everyone's sort of certain trauma.
Right.
It doesn't really happen. Everyone seems to be dreaming about, I don't know, like golden eye levels.
I gotta say though, that character was actually one of the most fascinating characters in the whole film. You barely see him at the beginning, and he disappears. But there's so much to him. Like, he betrays his friends.
It's a lasting impression.
He's sloppy. He's like, he actually has character traits which are really interesting.
They are, yeah. Like, he's kind of sloppy, and like he's kind of like very nervous and perturbed. Like, he's a person who I want to see grow throughout the movie.
Yeah, like it would have made. That's the thing. It would have made more sense to have this Arab guy fucking up everything than to have Cobb fucking up everything. Because Cobb, I understand Cobb's supposed to have a story arc, and it is very interesting that he's dealing with this deep-rooted issue. But, like, I don't know, him fucking everything up and being a complete prick about it, like, not telling anybody. It's like, how am I supposed to be invested in this character and like him when he's constantly unlikable throughout the entire thing?
He's very unredeeming. Yeah. And, like, his redemption, the fact that we're going to talk about that middle scene, the fact that his redemption happens within time span of, 5 minutes?
Oh, jeez.
And, like, in the middle of the film, and the rest of the movie, we're just supposed to kind of go along and just kind of wait for this movie to end is... It's very agonizing.
Like, that's the thing.
It's boring.
The biggest flaw for me, or one of the biggest flaws at least, is that by the end of the film, I don't give a shit that he gets to see his kids. Like, I don't care.
I don't give a shit about this, like, this whole fan interpretation about whether or not it's a dream and whatnot.
Oh,
like,
no, you know,
it doesn't really matter.
We'll talk about that when we get all the way to the end, because that's definitely the biggest. But yeah, I just couldn't care if Cobb saw his kids. Like, if Cobb died in the film, I would have been like, good. Like, Jesus, fucking asshole. Dead.
That to me would seem like a more, like, believable arc, because nobody in this film ever has consequences for what they're doing. What they're doing is, like, a fundamentally immoral act. You can never argue whether or not it's illegal. I mean, it's a fictional act, so obviously it wouldn't be laws.
Well, it's probably illegal. Like, there's no laws written about it, so...
Say what?
There's no laws written about it, so it's really
no. But what they're doing is they're basically promoting, for one thing, corporate interest.
Yeah.
They seem to participate in what appears to be organized crime, and going to people's subconscious and fundamentally changing their being. I mean, like, you're not even changing a person's mind, you're changing their being, you're changing their general life course of action. I mean, Cillian Murphy had an idea of what he wanted to do.
Right.
And perhaps he should have stuck with it. Like, who are we to judge? Because the person who wants them to change is this really underdeveloped, what's his name, his business partner or whatever? He was like the part stake owner in the company. Like
I know who you're talking about. When you see that thing, I completely forget his name. I didn't even write it down. Like,
and that's such an important character. That,
is it Peter?
Like, who cares?
Yes, okay.
Fat. I'm gonna call him fat business dude. I don't say with disrespect. Anyways, I'm gonna say with disrespect to those who are slightly overweight. I'm very underweight, so hey, two sides of the coin. So
how about old business dude? Is that fine?
Anyways, the fact that fat business dude, self-serving fat business dude who doesn't care about anything but money, the fact that he rings on top pretty much at the end.
Yeah, but the thing is, the business partner, who's like his godfather, the only version we see of him, though, is this projected version inside the dream. So we don't even know who the real guy is. Maybe the real guy is a totally...
No, we see a scene with him.
Like, it's true. There's one scene with him, but...
And he's like, Cillian Murphy, like, what are you going to do with all these assets? Like, blah, 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 blah. And Cillian Murphy's like, give me some space. I'll think about it. Like, let my father die.
I know,
first.
it's like, poor
and then he's like,
his father's dying. He has all these issues with his
right
dad.
In front of him.
Like, and everyone is just, like, up his ass. Like, poor guy, man.
I'm like, you're watching this and you're just like, I guess, like, this the fat businessman is going to be kind of like a big villain in this film. I don't think he's gonna be a hero.
Wait, who is I guess Maul is technically the villain?
Maul is the antagonist, I think.
But if you really think about it, wouldn't like Cobb and his team of merry men be the villains here, technically?
I suppose, like, I mean, hero villain, like, protagonist antagonist is such a annoying debate for
Supposed
me.
To be an anti-hero?
Like, chaotic
bad anti-hero, but
he's a protagonist. Mal's the antagonist. It takes a lot of thinking to figure this out because both of them are so, like, awkward fits in their roles.
Right.
And Ken Wannabe, oh my gosh, like, I guess he's the Japanese actor.
Oh, Sato. Okay.
I forgot his character's name, but
anyways, Sato.
Sato, thank you.
You see, I remember that one, but I couldn't remember fat business guy's name. Their names are useless, You got the chemist, you got the forger, you got the architect. I don't even know what Joseph Gordon-Levitt's role is. He's just
it's a
there.
Dungeons and Dragons crew. That's what it is. Everyone just has roles.
Yeah.
Nobody has characters. Anyways.
But what is Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this film? What is he? He's just the...
I think what he's supposed to be is kind of like a clarifier. He
clarifier?
Kind of makes Cobb's message a bit more likable and understandable. Like, to me... I don't think Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character was that fleshed out, but I appreciate his presence.
Do you think any of the characters were that fleshed out? Let's be honest.
I think, Joseph Gordon-Levitt particularly was frustrating because, like, for whatever reason, like, I liked his character's presence because he's basically reiterating what Leo was, except in probably more accessible, audience-friendly terms. He seemed like, to me, like, he seemed almost like a kind of like a legal advisor that you'd see like in a scene of like a courtroom drama or whatever. You see the defendant sitting down, this lawyer's going to be there, this lawyer's going to be kind of like reiterating what his defendant's saying and sort of like making a better case than his defendant ever could. To me, that's kind of like what Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character was more or less supposed to be, although very thinly developed because a lot of the time Joseph Gordon-Levitt is kind of reiterating exactly what Leo is saying. You're just like, okay, what's he doing here?
But of what I could gather, it seems like his role, like, in the team itself, he's, like, the researcher or something, because you remember, like, Cobb gets angry.
Yeah, he's a researcher.
Like, this was your job, you were supposed to find out that he had, like, this training in the security of his brain.
And I'm like, was it his job? Like, that was never shown.
Yeah. So I think he's, like, the researcher, but he also seems to be, like, the combat expert, because, he has a pretty, like, that's one of my favorite parts in the film, is, like, his little, like, fight scene where the whole set, like, rotates. Like, that's the centerpiece of the film. That's a highlight. Yeah, it's a highlight of the film.
That's the point of the movie where I'm like, yeah, this is what this film is supposed to be. This is what people remember this movie as being. Like, when people say, oh, Inception's a great film, if you ask them to close their eyes and think about Inception, they're going to think about that scene. They're going to think about that jump scene because that's, like, the best executed, like, half hour, not even.
Yeah.
20 some odd minutes of film.
That whole scene where they do all the kicks at the same time, that's great. Like, that's best part of this movie.
Yeah, but like also, but my enjoyment of that scene is like very much like from a distance, because fundamentally I don't really care about what's going on, because I don't really care about the main conflict in the film. I'm just like, oh, this is pretty clever, and this is actually pretty well oriented. It's pretty well directed, and I'm more or less curious to see how it's going to turn out. But they all die at the end. I don't care though, and
it's true, because I'm invested in the scene, but I don't care about the characters.
Yeah,
and I have more to say about like that whole segment of the movie, but when we get there, I'll talk about it.
All right, terrific. Anyways, what was I about to say? Yeah, it was about like character roles. Like, I guess like Leo's the protagonist, Mel's the antagonist, and Ken wannabe. I don't know.
He's
chaotic.
He
is annoying.
The wise old mentor.
Is he? Because at one point,
no, he's not.
At one point, he's the antagonist, but he switched on and off.
No, his
between different roles. I guess he's chaotic neutral. I guess he's catalyst.
Yeah. I don't know. He's the one who gives him the roles. So he's like the inciting incident, I guess.
Yes, like he's like I don't know. I hate the term chaotic neutral. And then these neckbeards are going to be listening to this. Are going to be like, well, he's chaotic neutral in the same vein of like, Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z or something like that. And I guess
dude, I think we're going to get.
I think Vegeta's a better character than fucking Kato.
I think we're going to get worse comments than neckbeards talking about a chaotic neutral.
They're going to be correcting my definition of chaotic neutral and all these.
Yeah. No, I think people are going to be more like, these guys didn't like Inception. They don't know movies. They don't like movies. They don't appreciate art and masterpieces.
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully they'll take the time to listen.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have some people maybe come in and maybe like further articulate some of the points we're trying to make.
Yeah.
Because if we do that, like even if our video is like mostly dislikes, if we do that, then our job is done.
Yeah,
exactly. We start a conversation. And that's what fundamentally what I want to do. I don't want to be liked necessarily. I just want to start a conversation. I want to get this viewpoint out. I want to make it not necessarily mainstream, but I want to make it acceptable. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like we're just like I said, we're just expressing our opinions. Our opinion is not right. This is not like law here. We're not saying like, oh, this is our opinion and this is right. Like, if you like it and you're able to defend why you like it, and you could say all the reasons you liked it, then good. Like, that's great.
Awesome.
We have different opinions, and we recognize that our opinion is obviously the unpopular opinion.
Yeah. And our purpose with this like review is to make sure that the people who like the film will be able to articulate their viewpoints in ways that we haven't seen this yet. Because like you said, like when people talk about their adoration of the film, I don't find that their praise is all that well articulated.
Right.
Or convincingly articulated. Somebody's well articulated, like in the sense that, like I said, it's full of pretense, but when it gets down to it, like it's very unconvincing, I find. Exactly.
Just because we don't like the film doesn't mean you don't have to not like it either. Like, you can love it. It could be your favorite movie forever. Good. Like, great. That's awesome, Like, I've seen so many reviews for movies I've absolutely loved that got terrible reviews and people tearing it apart and pointing out all its flaws. And I'll be like, you know what? They bring up good points. Those are flaws of that film. I still love it, though. So who cares? Like, it's opinions.
Those are some of my favorite reviews, actually. The ones that will shit upon something I like, just because it gives me it gives me a different perspective.
Right.
And it realizes, well, I like this film so much I can be able to overlook those flaws.
Yeah.
So that's a purpose criticism. Like, one point I want to make out right now is what Roger Ebert once said. Like, by the way, Roger Ebert's my hero, listeners. So I'm going to mention him probably like every 5 minutes. Not that frequently, don't worry. But he once said that, thumbs up, thumbs down is absolute bullshit. Like, that's not what you should view film criticism for. Like, who gives a shit whether or not I like a movie? You shouldn't base the opinion of a film, or rather, you shouldn't base your intent on seeing a film on whether or not a certain person likes it.
Right.
You should base your intent on seeing a film about what a particular person has to say about it, how they talk about it, what kind of film they view it as. Right. And if I articulate a movie that I don't like, but I'm using vivid enough terms and I'm getting a fair enough representation that a listener's going to be like, you know what, that actually sounds pretty good, then terrific, I've done my job.
Right, exactly.
That's my purpose. My purpose is to represent a film well. That's why it's called a review. But if you're gonna read a review just to see whether or not a person likes it, and then base your intent to view that film upon that, then you're not looking at film criticism correctly.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like pretentious on my part, but it's legit. Like, because film reviews, they weren't like thumbs up, thumbs down. They didn't have a star rating system until like 30 some odd years ago, like 40 some odd years ago. Like before that, all criticism, it never had a rating system. It was all just talking about what this play or what this film, what this book was about, and that's the way it should be.
Right.
It shouldn't be about opinion. I mean, obviously there's subjectivity to it, but it shouldn't be about like yes or no. Sorry, that's a bit of a rant.
No, that's fine. And no, but that's what I was saying. Like, if somebody is going to listen to us and disagree with us, sure, they can come. As long as they're respectful. If they comment, like, very respectful things, like, it's fine. But if, like, you're so passionate about that you love this movie, you know what? I would highly encourage you to go record your own podcast about why you love this movie so much. Like, go ahead. Absolutely. That would be awesome.
We encourage that. So
now, that being said, on our difference of opinions PSA, why don't we get started?
We should have like Courtney music playing in the background. Like, remember those like Canada Warning commercials?
Yeah.
What they call like children's advisory commercials?
Yeah, children's. The
You have like a soft piano music in the background. Will there be a bunch of puppets on screen talking about like heroin?
We're not don't you put it in your mouth. Don't you put it in your mouth. That was my favorite one.
Yeah, all right. So, this film opens with my least favorite thing in movies.
Is it the trumpet blaring?
My particular bias, and I do say bias because there are plenty of arguments towards this particular gentleman that I've heard that are very convincing, and obviously he's a very revolutionary composer, you know where I'm going, but my least favorite composer in movies is Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer. And the first thing we hear in this movie is that sound that has contaminated like all action films since 2010, probably all trailers, whether or not they're action films, since 2010. It's the
I know what you wanted this. The minute that played, it's like there's not even a visual of the film. There's just like a logo on. I wrote the note. This is the first note I have on my page here. My head already hurts.
I know, and it's like. And it's like immediately like, going into this movie, I was like really optimistic. I'm like, maybe my dislike of it was my 19-year-old me disliking it. Like right now I'm 26. Like maybe my perspective has changed over time. Second I hear Hans Zimmer, I'm just like, fuck, I know what I'm in for. I know what I'm in for.
Look, but to the movie's credit, it was the first.
The first one to look long.
To have that, so it's kind of this thing where we've been so oversaturated with that sound that when we go back to this movie, we're kind of like, even though when we first heard it, like, I'll admit, the first time I watched Inception, I kind of jumped onto the hype train and was like, oh, this movie, oh my god. And then as time went on, I was like, wait a minute, hold on. And I took a step back and, like, really looked at my reaction and realized my reaction was purely me jumping on the hype train and not me. It wasn't, like, an actual natural reaction to it.
The Emperor was indeed naked, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, but I don't know, like, with the Hans Zimmer thing, it's like, when it comes to music like the most subjective thing on the universe, right? And so either like it or don't. And at the time when the Blanc came out, obviously some people thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. Other people thought that's kind of annoying, it's kind of unsubstantial, and it's kind of forced. And one of those people was me. I still think that to this day, and I still can't stand that sound. And for me, Hans Zimmer is still kind of a very, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like an uninspired composer.
Right.
Like I can go on and on about what I think about Hans Zimmer, and I won't go into too much detail because obviously like he's like one of 1,000 components in this film. But for me, it's such a negative component of this movie because he's played throughout. Like this, he doesn't shut up. Like,
but that's a problem with Nolan
talking at a cafe, and like Hans Zimmer sort of going with his like MIDI brass or whatever the fuck he has in the background, and it's like, tone it down, dude.
That's a problem with the Nolan films too, like especially Interstellar, where you got this like, like
Hans
he
Zimmer
fell on his like synthesized organ and just like let it play throughout the whole film.
He fell on his organ and he accidentally turned down everything else in the movie. That's what happened.
It's like, there you go. There's your music.
It's like, the movie's like ASMR, and then it's just like in the background with like this fucking like weird like synthesized orchestral. I don't know what the fuck. None of his music has ever sounded organic.
No.
Like, you can defend The Lion King, whatever you want. The good songs in the movie weren't written by him.
But
I can't stand his really artificial style.
In terms of that brrr sound, I will give him credit. I will give him credit where it's due, because I know for sure people are going to comment about this. So just putting it out there, we are aware. The inspiration for the brrr sound was what Non Rien de Rien would sound like within the dreams, like the very slowed down version of it, like the trumpets in that song would sound like that. So it makes sense. It does make sense why they would use it. It doesn't make it any less annoying. But it makes sense, at least.
Yeah. There's certain points, like, this isn't my... I really dislike Hans Zimmer, but this is my least favorite Hans Zimmer score, because it seems to work with the film, for the most part. Like you're saying, like, the Braun comes in at appropriate moments where you like it. That really corny, like, overblown, like, time melody, comes in when it's supposed to. I don't like that particular song. Everyone talks about how that's one of the best film compositions like the last 25 years. I'm not particularly engaged by it, but that comes in at appropriate points, and some of his like annoying doodlings, they all play at appropriate points. So I mean, the score for the most part fits. I just think that sometimes silence is very much welcome. Something that Christopher Nolan I don't think is ever properly recognized since Memento.
I wrote a few notes about that where like there's so many moments would be so beautiful, but it's just characters talking. Just like shut up for 2 seconds.
I want to see just Ellen Page like walk through that initial dreamscape she had and just looking about and like admiring everything moving, and that would have been cool, but we never get that proper moment.
Yeah, I have so many notes in my pages of like those moments that I'm like, this would have been so much better if the characters would just shut up and like live the moment. And my best example of this, it's not even from this movie, it's from Interstellar, that I keep thinking about is the scene where Matt Damon goes back to the ship and he hasn't closed the port properly, and it's going to explode eventually, and they're like following him and all that, and I'm like, you know what, this scene would be amazing, it's tense, but Matt Damon is talking through the entire thing, just blah blah blahing this weird like monologue about man is not good, and you gotta understand. It's like, shut up.
And it's not even the fact that he like that's annoying in itself. It's the fact that he has nothing to say while he's talking, like
blah blah blahing about nothing.
And it's not even like he's a crazy... Like, obviously I understood the point. Like, he's a crazy person. What he was saying wasn't totally rational, but it wasn't that interesting either. And in fact, it was Matt Damon. Like, Matt Damon's not a person you pick to play a crazy, unhinged person. Because when Matt Damon's playing crazy, unhinged person, he is just Matt Damon reading lines of a crazy, unhinged person. I'm not a big Matt Damon hater. I think there are certain roles that he's very suitable in. And obviously, he's terrific in the Bourne trilogy because he plays a passive protagonist. That's what Bourne is, pretty much. He's a passive protagonist, and he fits that beautifully. But in Interstellar, oh my god, that's another podcast.
We'll talk about it another time. We'll focus on it. But I mean, that's the example I was using of where, and I don't know if it can't be Nolan's fault, because Nolan doesn't technically write the scripts, but whoever has his brother, I think, has been writing most of his scripts.
Yes, he has. Yeah. And brotherly love. I'm sure he can't.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like you would think by now, like, he would be aware that it's like, silence can be your friend. Let the actors... Yes. The actors don't have to speak everything they're feeling all the time.
The first 30 years of movies, no actor spoke, and it was... I won't say it was fine, but it was serviceable, because there are certain points in film where you don't need to speak.
Exactly.
Ingmar Bergman once said the most important thing in a movie is a face. Everything else is secondary, and that's completely true.
But we'll get into that specifically when those scenes come up.
All right,
I like how we haven't even passed the logo yet. We're still on the logo with the...
Oh, dude, you don't know me and Hans Zimmer. I got like a voodoo doll of him, like fucking his face on a dartboard in my room.
Should we have a whole...
Hans Zimmer podcast?
Yeah, Hans Zimmer podcast.
Please.
But that means we'll have to listen to all his soundtracks, and I don't really want to do that.
No. Okay. Anyways, so what's our next scene? We haven't even gone into the scene. We're just talking about opening credits, weren't we?
Yeah, that's it.
So the first scene is like waves. Like, to establish the setting of the film is waves. Anyways, and we see Leo wake up on a beach, and he's completely unconscious. He gets dragged by a bunch of guards, and you're just and it's mildly intriguing. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Where's this going? And he gets dragged to a room with this old Japanese fellow, and you're like, okay, this is a good setup. And then it cuts. It cuts to some other point in time, and it's a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a bit jolting.
Yeah.
And it really draws attention to yourself, but for the most part, I'm like tolerating it. Like, okay, this could be going somewhere. And I'm listening. They're talking about ideas, and they're talking about exactly the point of their experiment, the point of like Inception, things like that. I'm like, okay, this is pretty important. What I didn't realize is that they would repeat that exact same conversation several minutes later into the film in the helicopter, making this whole cut entirely pointless.
Yeah, there's a lot. This is what I felt like. The whole thing, already I was so bugged by the fact that, like, here's an example of, like, you don't need to speak so much. He finds the top. He's like, "Are you here to kill me?" And it's like, and then he spins the top. He's like, "I remember this." And it's like, it could have ended there. Just, "I remember this," spin the top, and there's just like this silent moment between it. But no, he keeps going. A half-remembered dream, a man possessed with no shit. It's like, oh my god, like, why do you need to add all this?
And cutting back to the previous other conversation too, that's also wordy, but not even like properly like parallel thematically to what the old Japanese fellow was talking about then. I mean, to me, that cross-cutting doesn't work. I mean, Nolan is a fellow who likes to play with time.
Right.
And I say play with because that's mostly what he does in this film. Like, he kind of plays with it. At some points it works, but there it just seems like doodling. It's like, how about we start this film from the end? And it's like, why are you starting from the end? It's like, because it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's
well,
like,
I mean, like you
when
said,
I think of the writing process.
At first, okay, so this is how I feel about Inception. It's a lot of great ideas just executed poorly. And,
very poorly, yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like you said, it's kind of intriguing at the beginning, what's going on and all this. If it had been executed better, that would have been a great beginning.
Right, it would have been very cool. Like when really saying when the old man says, "I remember this," and he spins it. You know what you do then? Cut to it spinning and somebody picking up at a different time point.
Yes,
that's what
there.
You do. That's what you do. Like, there, punch, done.
No, instead they, I wonder how many lines the Japanese guy had at first. He probably had more, just like, "Half remember dream, man possessed with notions. This man who wanted to do things." They did. No, he did have more lines, because then they repeat the same fucking lines throughout the whole film. Where is it? It's like, "You become an old man, dying alone." It's like, oh my god, I dreaded those lines every time they said them. I was just like, why? Like,
and can I say something? Like,
yes, you can say something.
Okay. It's, for me personally, I really did not like Ken Wanabe's performance.
And yeah, I know his name is Watanabe, but I'm going to call him Wannabe anyways because it rolls off the tongue much more easily and because it amuses me. So
he was snarly throughout the whole movie. I didn't really understand like what this guy was trying to like get out of life, what he was trying to get out of these characters. He seemed very bitter. It seemed like he never wants to be in a scene. That's like the impression I get from both the actor and the character. Like, they feel very uncomfortable.
No,
maybe that was the intention.
He's very tapped out in this movie. Like he's just like most of the performances. He's just reading his lines, but he's the worst at it in this movie. Like he's just really. I wouldn't be surprised they had the cue cards up next to the camera showing him his lines.
Much.
Like
part of it, I'll give him credit. Like part of it is perhaps the language barrier, but then you have Mehdia Consumers, who I know again wasn't like the best performance, wasn't the best character either, but I think she delivers a bit more conviction than Ken Wanabe, who I found to be very like one-noted.
Yeah, but even then, just because there's a language barrier doesn't mean you don't feel emotion.
Exactly.
Anyways, maybe your sentence structure will be off, but like you still have emotions and feelings.
But there was no emotion. He was just like cringe face throughout the entire time, and he was like, I'm angry.
No, the only time he showed any emotion was when Eames comes into the elevator as the girl and tries to hit on him, and he's like, oh no.
Like one of the rare points. That's like one of my positives. I like the humor in this movie.
Because it's very welcome. There's moments that I shouldn't have been laughing that made me laugh, but
that's a little bit like with Mal and stuff like that. I'm just like, well, this is kind of ridiculous, and I kind of laughed to myself. But like when he tries to be funny, it is funny, I find.
Yeah.
And so that stuff works out. But oh my gosh. So anyways, yeah. So we cut from that early point in time.
Oh yeah. So yeah, this is what I want to say. They cut from that, and they cut to another scene of them just talking, just blah, just blah. Because okay, so this is. Inception, they went into this movie with like all these deep concepts about dreams, and there's a lot of stuff that, like, I understand. There's a lot of stuff they need to explain because people will be confused.
Absolutely.
But they kind of wrote themselves into a wall here because it's kind of like they have no choice but to constantly explain things. And like starting from this scene, that's all we get is just exposition because they need to explain this whole idea about dreams. And especially here, you know, like they're talking about how he goes to like get secrets by going into people's dreams and stuff. So it's like they need to explain this, but it's done in such a boring way. Like they're just sitting and like...
And it doesn't, and the exposition, like you can do exposition in film in a way that comes about naturally. Like one example I'm going to bring up, and this is a very imperfect movie, and it's a real eye-rolling, like neckbeard film, but I think it surprisingly holds up, is The Matrix. Okay. I mean, that movie has a whole bunch of fucking stupid shit, mainly Keanu Reeves. Anyways, but compare like the exposition in that film, like the exposition of Inception.
Right. Like
Inception, it's perhaps a bit more complicated, but The Matrix itself, it's like a really big, weird concept with like a whole bunch of backstory.
Right.
But it's done so much better because they introduce it bit by bit by bit by bit.
Right. Yeah.
We follow Neo first. Think of this film like Inception. Right away, we're starting with this dream team. Right away, we're starting with this and this and that, and then we kind of have to pick up the pieces ourselves. It's a bit scrambly.
Yeah.
With Matrix, we start off as a regular person, as Neo, or from his perspective, and then we slowly get introduced to the world outside the Matrix. We slowly introduce the idea of the Matrix, and we slowly get introduced to the central conflict of the movie.
Yes.
That's how you do exposition.
Yeah.
That's
and
how
it's
you do
interesting
proper
that you mentioned
exposition.
The Matrix, because I was thinking about The Matrix when watching this film, in the sense that the way the characters are in The Matrix is very similar in this, and that a lot of them are just defined by the roles that they play within the team.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, The Matrix has a lot of issues, and I'm not even prepared. Like, I had to rewatch that movie. It's been... I was probably prepubescent last time I watched it, but...
Even then, it's been a long time since I watched Matrix, but even then, I found, like, even though the characters didn't really go beyond what the roles in the team was, they still had a semblance of, like, something.
Yes. It was balanced, too. Balance in the same... Oh, my God. Like, this team's imbalance. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Anyways, so our first thing is that the Dream Team, they're trying to do an Inception upon Koba?
No, they're not incepting him. They're trying to get secrets from him.
Right.
That's what Cobb has been trained to do. That's what he's been doing. I think, of what I understood, that's the main job that they always do, is that they go into people's dreams to steal information for other people. And that's essentially what was happening here.
Yeah, and it's a little bit interesting, but then, of course, Mehdia Consumers comes into the picture and sticks out like a complete sore thumb. Like we said, like this kind of the idea of this character is quite interesting. Like this idea of like you have this person who's literally haunting your dreams,
right,
and who's ruining everything for you. That sounds really cool. But right away, they just like give away this character. Like we like with a true menacing antagonist, you introduce him little bit by little bit, like little bit.
Yeah, like it would have been really cool if like we saw her there and like Joseph Gordon-Levitt had his whole thing. Oh, she's here. And he's like,
exactly.
and kind of like, I'll handle it. But instead of it being like he goes to talk to her and all they fucking do is talk. Like, and talk, and he brings her to a room, and it's like, do the children miss me? All this bullshit that no one gives a shit about, because they're just setting up, like, what the issue is in a really wooden and caca way, and it's like, instead of doing it like that, they could have had, like you said, they could have kept her more secretive, like, showing her bit by bit, like, oh, she's here, and everyone's like, oh, who's she? And you don't explain it right away,
exactly.
But no, we find out instantly who it is, and it's kind of like,
that she's a love interest, etc., and they can do this pace-breaking scene when she talks to her by the side, like by the rail, which makes no sense. You have a mission to do, dude. Why are you talking to her?
Yeah.
Like, I understand I understand the idea that she's bugging your subconscious. That's why she's in the first place. But when you're there speaking to her, that's not your subconscious speaking. That's your super ego. You're making the purposeful choice to go over and speak to her, and it breaks the pace of the scene.
Yeah.
That's
it's not just the pace of the scene. It breaks the pace of like the whole sequence in general, because it's like there's a they're doing the whole thing with Sato, and then this is a mission that, like you said, this is a mission that they're on, but the movie literally stops for Cobb to talk to his wife, and it's like the whole movie, Cobb is always talking about how like, oh, these missions are important, we're time sensitive, blah blah blah, and all these characters are always like, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got this. But the movie and these characters non-stop, especially Cobb, always stops to have these like unnecessary conversations. It's like, do you actually really care? Like, I'm very confused.
It's a lot should have been cut out in the whole exposition of this film. Like, I mean, the whole beginning, the whole prologue should have been really more concise than it really was, and it painfully shows. I mean, even when this film came out, Among and Myers, like, this was the main fault, was the film's like general introduction.
Yeah,
because it is so clunky. So
that's the thing. It sets up like this introduction is supposed to set up the tone for the whole film, and all it sets up for us is that, like, okay, the visuals are pretty nice. Like, the set design was really nice. Like, I really liked the whole like Chinese hotel. Was it a
Japanese.
Hotel?
Japanese.
Japanese hotel. The production design is really nice. But the thing is, they set up the fact that this movie is just going to be a lot of talking and a lot... Yeah. And I feel like I've repeated this, like, so many times.
It needs to be repeated.
So I got to watch out what I say for the rest of the... I'm going to stop talking about how they talk so much. But it's so hard not to talk about it because that's all they do is talk so much. Like, it's so frustrating how much they talk in this film. And it's not interesting. It's not like a Woody Allen film where he talks and talks and talks. It's all talky, but it's interesting.
It's funny.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah,
like, and there's subtext to it. There's character to it. Like, there's something interesting going on. While here, it's like being in a science class or being in like, or not a science class, but like a class where you're learning about like psychology or something.
It's a lecture. This is a movie of characters lecturing us. And one point I really want to go by, one point I really want to left my chest is that this is an example of a story-driven characters as opposed to a character-driven story. And by that I mean, like, the characters are there for the story rather than the story being there for the characters. Like, in the sense, like, because, like, here it's characters are planted in the story and they have to get from point A to point B, but we never really feel as if they being motivated to push along, because a lot of the motivations, they come out of the complete blue. Right. Like Leo's main motivation with this entire film is so vague.
Yeah.
And
well, he wants to get redemption to go back to his kids. Redemption for what?
About his kids that we hear by phone, and we don't even know, like, if he had a very good relationship. I guess we're supposed to assume that he had a good relationship with his kids, but I don't know. Like, how am I supposed to believe he's not even that good of a father?
But here's the thing, like,
because it didn't even sound like his kids really liked him on the phone.
So if I was to understand, he got framed for the murder of his wife.
Yes. Okay. He got framed because the wife set it up that way. She said, "Oh, my husband and I were doing a suicide pact or something like that." And the fact that he ran away from that suicide pact meant that it was sort of like a covert murder, so to speak. Like, he was taking advantage of his wife's mental illness or something like that, so that she could jump off a tower in Paris.
Was he, like, banished from the United States?
He was,
or from his hometown, or from his house. I
think.
Where does this
from
movie
what I understand,
take place?
I don't know. It never specifies. I just assume he's banished everywhere.
He just can't be anywhere. He's always in hiding, except Michael Caine's university. He can pop in there.
Oh, Michael Caine. Right. Anyways, we're getting ahead. Anyways, we haven't even finished talking about the first dream, and the first dream. The idea here is interesting. Like, the way, I'll say it's clever, the way Nolan sort of points out exactly how important architecture is in this dream.
Yes.
That's a really cool idea, Mr. Nolan. Props to you for that. The idea of having architecture for your dream, having to make sure that everything is really accurate and things like that, and the way Ken Wannabe, he's on the carpet and he's feeling it and he realizes, this is bullshit. That stuff is cool.
Yeah,
and,
like, this isn't my carpet.
Yeah, I love that line. And like,
that's what I wrote in my notes. I wrote, "Laugh my ass off the carpet,"
because that's the kind of dialogue you should have in this movie. Like, this isn't my carpet, because we know it's such simple dialogue, but we know exactly the implications of what he's talking about. Right?
I wish it was like that. I wish it was like he fell on the floor and he's like, "This isn't my carpet. It is polyester. Yeah. This is a dream." You know, instead of like this whole like, once again, it's like there's no emotion to it. It's like, it's such a funny line, and like they could have played it up like as something great, and it's this whole thing of like, oh, you know, but
he could have been like snarky about it and really kind of fun.
Yeah,
like,
but no, it's another like
like
useless monologue that this character has, all because it's not the right carpet. It's like, that's hilarious. Just treat it with how it's supposed to be. Why do they have to like go on this whole like pseudo intellectual monologue about a fucking carpet? Like,
because the whole film is set in that motion. But anyways, Leo's jump is pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, with the hot tub, I liked how they had, not the hot tub,
the bathtub.
that would have been awesome. But no, with the bathtub set up, like it was all be prepped. I mean, the idea of the scene was pretty well staged.
Yeah,
and it's pretty cool. Like having to protest outside, it lends the false impression that throughout this film we're going to see some very interesting scenarios that pertain to a person's fears and wants.
Yeah, and that's something I like too. That they introduce also the idea of how the upper layer can affect the lower layer. Like when Leo goes in for the dunk and like all the water suddenly appears. Like that's the thing. Like there's a lot of cool ideas in this film, and at times, like at that moment, that was like a cool idea executed very well. And I just wish that they could do that with every idea they had in this film.
At the midpoint, things get a bit more they get a bit more competent, but because like you're right. There's like these cool little pieces of imagination. They're just like smothered in this really kind of overwritten screenplay. But anyways, so they failed the test, right?
Right. Oh yeah. When what's his name, Saito, he comes up, it's like, I know what this is. This is an audition. I am testing you, and I am not impressed. And then it's like, aha, you are in another dream. Oh, now I'm impressed. Ooh. Like.
It's kind of fun, but it's not. It's actually. It sounds more fun the way you're describing it. Honestly.
Yeah, sorry.
It's actually portraying the film.
I'm turning the film into a comedy. That's why.
It could have been good as a comedy. I don't know. So yeah. So they wait from the dream. The whole mission is ruined, and then the movie doesn't really even start at this point because we still have...
No, that's the thing. This is, for anyone who's never seen the film, I'm telling you right now, right after they wake up from the dream, nothing interesting happens for the longest time.
And for those who want to write movies, like, conventionally, this is the point where your actual story starts. This is the point where you're just like, oh boy, what do we do now? And, like, that's the point where you have your conflict beginning to set up.
To be fair... This is the point where Sato's like, I have a job proposition for you. You can help me do an Inception. And it's like, that's impossible. You know, it's around this point that it starts, that idea starts to form. That idea starts to incept.
Yeah, the idea. Ooh.
Yeah.
We're getting
but before we continue,
like,
I want to say there was this... It's this very nitpicky thing where he's in the hotel room and he calls his kids. Another moment where it's like, why do you need all this fucking dialogue? Like, subtext would have been amazing here. Like, the kid conversation is fine. You can get a sense of, like, how he feels towards his children. But then they have to add the whole, like, why is mommy gone? Oh, you know, mommy's not around. But why? It's like, I
know, like... I don't know much about child psychology, but I do know that a kid who's been told once something, like at that young age, he's more or less going to keep it. Yeah. You know?
But not just that. Like, it's not just like, I'm just saying, like, for the sake of the scene itself, I thought it would be much more powerful as a scene if we could see Cobb and this sort of struggle he's having, that he's away from his kids, and the only solace he can get is these, like, phone calls, you know? And if we could just watch him struggling, and it's a genuinely nice conversation, or maybe the kids are a little disconnected because they don't understand what's going on because they're too young, and you could see him kind of struggling with this idea of, like, he understands the weight of the situation, but the kids don't. But they just had to add that whole, like, mommy's not here, because they need that exposition so the audience understands that the mom is dead, even though it's like, we can... That's the problem I had with a lot in this movie. It explains so much to us, and it doesn't leave us, the audience, to kind of put the pieces together.
Like, we understood at that point that Mal's dead. Yeah. And then later in the film, Joseph Gordon-Levitt says to Ellen Page, by the way, Mal's dead.
Yeah, it's like, we know she's dead. Like, how was she alive? Oh, she was lovely. Like, what does this do? Like what
this combo wasn't necessary. It's like if that conversation done properly would have been like, we would have seen the aftermath of that explanation. She's like, wow, this guy's had a rough, you know, that poor woman. And then afterwards, you talk about something different. But instead, it's like, they repeat the same thing they said earlier, just with different characters.
It's just
which
reiteration.
just kind of reiterates the points that these characters have nothing unique to say individually.
They want to make sure they want to make sure the audience knows what's going on. Yeah. They want to make sure we know. Like, it wasn't obvious enough, apparently.
I know.
And this happens a lot. I think there was one specific moment in it where I was like, this character just recapped what everyone said. Like, it's awful.
What point is that?
We'll get there. I have it in my notes.
We'll get there. Okay. So, my next step, I might be jumping ahead a couple of useless scenes, but he visited his father, Michael Caine.
Oh, wait. You missed...
I missed a good part.
Where they just take away their Arab friend and
oh my god,
he's dead.
Yes.
Like, well, and he doesn't care. He doesn't give two
Nobody
shits.
cares.
He's unfazed by it completely. They're like, what are you guys gonna do to him? Oh, nothing. But I can't say the same thing about the company that hired you. And he's like, oh, okay, that's fair enough. Okay, sure, he's fucked. Whatever, I don't care.
The one sympathetic character so far in the story, and he's immediately killed off by the very people we're going to be following for the rest of the story.
And nobody cares. They just don't care. Mate, do you think, like, the reason they don't care is because this just happens so much to them? They just keep losing members of their team?
I think that's the implication. Like, this is, like, not the only screw-up they had. And there's always going to be one whipping boy. He's going to be sort of booted, so to speak.
Felt so bad for him.
It's also an implication that what they're doing is pretty criminal.
Right.
And as criminals, they don't really have much sensibility.
So maybe it's a whole, like, to each their own, like, fend for yourselves kind of thing.
I suppose so, yeah, but
still, like, as an audience
done.
member, I'm kind of like, well, poor guy, man, Jesus, like.
Yeah, it's insensitively done, like, and this fact that Leo kind of looked kind of concerned, but then immediately forgets about it. So it's like, wait, he's concerned, but now he's not. Like,
was he concerned though? Like, I don't know. Leo's acting in this film is absurd. I don't know what's going on with it.
This is one that age-old question whether or not it's the acting or the direction, but. Oof. Anyways.
Oh wait, I gotta say a point about that though. Like, I was talking to someone about Inception a long time ago, and the argument someone came up with while I was saying why Inception, like all these all the reasons I've been saying here, like why I'm not crazy. I think Inception's an okay movie. The argument they came up was, but Leo DiCaprio's a good actor. Like, he's done good movies. And it's like, it's not even he's good in this movie. He's just a good actor in general. And I'm like, how is this an argument? Like, okay, like, he did good in, like, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, but what does that have to do with his acting in Inception? It has literally nothing to do with anything.
No. I with Leo in this film, like, part of it's the character, but part of it is the fact I don't think that Leo is the best fit for this particular kind of fellow, like
maybe. But the problem is you can't, because of like the impact this film had. You can't picture anyone else doing this character.
It kind of not like you need to be a big fellow. You need to be a character of significant like screen presence and of like significant cultural stature, I suppose. So in that regard, I guess he works, but there's not one point in this film where I was like really kind of like leaning in my seat, listening to what he was saying, because this character just fell so flat for me. So this helicopter scene sucks.
Oh yeah, and this is where we're introduced to the fucking line that's going to be said throughout the entire film. The whole like, take a leap of faith. You will become an old man with regret, waiting to die alone. Like, remember this line, because you will hear it many times, and it starts off just Sato, but it will become a back and forth between Sato and Cobb. Just remember that.
Yeah. And the way that the conversation ends with the proposition, and the proposition, the way it's presented, like I guess I can understand that this is like the promise of seeing the kids again is something that Leo would have interest in, but the way that it's articulated by Cabo is ridiculous. Like, I think Leo said something like, if I were to believe you, and I don't really believe you, like, how do I know that you're going to be able to provide this? And he's like, you don't know what you want. Or something like along those lines. And Leo just says, okay, I'll go along with it. like
this guy is like the sleaziest person ever. Like, why would you trust him? He's like, I got connections.
Who just killed your friend previously?
Yeah, I could fix it up for you. I could make a few calls. And it's like, oh, sure, I believe this guy.
I got child services and I know a few good people. Like it doesn't work, and like Leo's character, like as likable he is, he doesn't seem like an idiot.
Honestly, watching this movie, he is a bit of an idiot.
Well, so, at certain points, yeah, he's kind of dumb, but I don't think he's dumb enough to fundamentally believe like a proposition without any sort of evidence that it comes almost completely out of the blue.
Because Leo is a desperate man. Cobb is so desperate. He's at his wits. He just wants to see his kids, man. He will do anything. That would have been so great if at the end of the movie, Saito was like, "Ha ha ha! I fucked with you. You did my deed, but I am not helping you." Ha! And he just like jumps out of the plane with a parachute. You know.
That would have made more sense at least than the actual ending.
Cobb
of the
is
film,
just like, oh shit.
So, anyways, what happens next?
He goes to see Michael Caine.
Michael Caine. What is he doing in this movie?
Because of what I heard, Christopher Nolan said Michael Caine's his like good luck charm or something.
Oh,
I don't know.
Is he?
I love Michael Caine, but
I do.
I don't know what's happening in the Nolan films, especially the last few, but he's being used like a prop, basically. Where it's like, okay, just stick him in the scene, have him say lines, and that's cool.
Like he was brought in for that one day to shoot something. That's the impression I get. Like I said, okay, I can do this one scene. Is that all right? Like,
well, he has other scenes, but not many.
Yeah, but
I think you see him like 2 more times.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
Like towards the end, kind of. I don't know.
Oh yeah, at the end when he picks him up from the airport, brings him to see his kids.
Yeah.
No, Michael Caine's checked out. He's just like I'm here for my paycheck.
One thing I'm wondering about, you might disagree, but I'm like, was this intermediary like really that necessary? Like Michael Caine's character, like I'm not talking about Michael Caine necessarily. I'm just talking about the character. Like
no, Michael Caine as a person is not necessary.
Oh
no, I love Michael Caine. That's a joke.
Oh, come on now. Anyways,
I'm gonna get a knock at my door after this. It's Michael Caine himself. Just like, I heard what you said about me. I can't make a good Michael Caine impression. Sorry.
Neither can I, but whatever. Was the intermediary like really necessary? Like, was there like I understood that there needed to be a rational way.
Like I don't know. I mean, it gives him a way to find someone to replace the architect, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it's interesting that there's like the grandfather character who's kind of like part of it. Like, I think it would have been better if, like everything else in this movie, that they used him for subtext purposes of like adding to the whole situation that Cobb's in, like his issue. The issue with Maul, the issue with the children, like the whole family stuff that he's dealing with. And once again, we're dealt with more blah, 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 where like again, we could have had such a great scene that could have been powerful to get into the mindset, the mindset that Cobb is in and understand his character more. But instead, once again, everything is just explained to us nonstop.
Very literal-mindedly. Like, your conversation could have ended with, I need to find an architect. And he's like, well, what's the problem? He says, it's Mal. Cut to Michael Caine, and then cut to like being introduced to the architect.
Right. Maybe, although I do like the line when he's like, "Are you here to corrupt my students?" Like that was funny. I like that line. Like
like we said, the humor in this film is pretty on point. Yeah, and Michael Caine does have pretty good comic timing.
It's the British in him. That's why.
Yeah, that's the thing. Always said that Michael Caine, like, this is a bit of like a tangent, but like I always pictured him as being sort of like a potential kind of like British Jack Nicholson.
Okay,
kind of like the quirky guy who has like pretty good understated kind of comic timing, but he's always given these serious roles.
Okay, can you imagine Michael Caine as the Joker?
That could British Joker. That'd be
he's too old now. No, he makes a good. You know what? In all fairness, he makes a good Alfred.
He does make a terrific Alfred, yeah. But,
I do like him as Alfred, except in Dark Knight Rises, like where he.
Well, there's a lot of things I don't like in that movie, so it's fine. But
it's funny. Another Nolan film. Look at that.
Oh Lord! But like in this film and Interstellar, I just think that he's a very distracting presence.
He's a
like
prop.
They could have gone for
He's especially in Interstellar. He's just a prop. He's a prop that talks. That's all he is. Poor guy, because he's a very talented actor. It's like, use him. Like, it's Michael Caine, for God's sakes. Like, use him properly.
And use him properly. like, he should be like this quirky fellow, right? He should be a quirky fellow. He should be a snark. He should be a real clever.
And you
British
sort of,
chap,
like I said, you
and-
sort of see that with the, "Oh, you're here to corrupt my students,"
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
but that's it. You don't get any more from it.
No, and you're just like, okay, well, is there gonna be more clever Michael Caine? It's like, no. And,
No, you don't see him for the rest of the film until the end. Like
Anyhow,
the scene
so,
didn't have to be that long. That's
No,
their
it didn't.
conversation.
Just look,
And
look at us
it's
talking
not
about
even
this.
shot interesting. It's just shot reverse shot, like practically the whole time. Like
Yeah, like,
which works in a Coen Brothers film, but it doesn't work here. So they meet Ariadne.
yeah. Who is a character?
It was at this point that I was like, we're not going to meet any interesting characters because we meet her, and once again, like, Ellen Page is a fine actress. Put her in the right role. She's really good. I really do like her. But here she's just, once again, just saying lines. Like, and it's so weird because one of the first major scenes you see her in is he asks her to draw the maze. Right here, draw me a maze that I can solve. And that's I actually like that scene. I think that's a very interesting scene because she's being put on the spot. And I'm like, you see some character, you see her getting frustrated, and I'm like, oh, and then, you know, when she finally decides to do the circle, she's like, oh yeah, well, fuck you, watch this. And it's like, you get a sense, you get a sense of sassiness and attitude that it doesn't exist in the rest of the movie.
No,
like,
and like, because this is, maybe I'm talking about from point of personal preference, but perhaps you're going to agree with me, but when I think of, like, who would they pick as an architect, like, I'd probably think of some, like, I don't know, like, I don't want to exaggerate, but, like, a little, like, hacker chick who probably has like, maybe a bit of a goth, kind of has, like, a strong, angsty attitude.
But that's why, like, Ellen Page is great casting for this role. Like, I think
she could have worked as that.
Yeah,
but
if they could have given her more.
The character's written as, like, your kind of, like, 4.0 GPA, like, girl who's always at the library and who listens to, like, Jack Johnson and is completely boring. Like, that's the character.
You know what? Like, she ends up being, like, the character who confronts him. Like, she's definitely, like, one of the stronger characters because she does confront Cobb a lot. She's standing her ground, being like, you know, Cobb, you're being a real prick here. Like, you got to tell everyone, like, this is fucked up. Like, Cobb, like, you have issues, you know? She's the only, like, one in the team who has some semblance of character, but...
And that could have been done great, but except that her actual confrontation of Cobb is so immediate and it's so immediately successful. Like, it should have been something where she's challenging him throughout the film.
Yeah.
And where Cobb is, like, slowly getting the idea.
And even then, like, even though she's, like, she's being tough, like, she's, like, a tough female role, it's all bogged down by all the exposition again. You still don't get a sense of character. Like, her character is only shining through with the dialogue that she was given rather than subtext. Again, like... It's like, is this really just her character, or is it because in the script she's saying things that are supposed to be this way, you know?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think it's completely the latter.
But that's what's frustrating, because, like I said, this could have been, and especially in terms of female characters, this could have been a great female character, and she still kind of is, but...
Yeah, like, in theory, and
in theory, but if they fleshed her out more, she could have been really great.
Yeah, and they give her some personal quirk. Instead, she's just rid of female token.
But to be fair, she's one of the few characters that actually shows any semblance of emotion.
Yes.
And like, you know, when she's doing the dreams for the first time and she wakes up and she's like, what the fuck was that? And it's like, you know, and she's screaming at Cobb, you have issues. Like, wow, a character's actually emoting in this film? That's crazy.
Yeah. You know, I have my own, like, personal theory about, like, how differently this film could have been set up, and one, like, my various ideas, and, like, one of them is perhaps, like, where she's kind of positioned as the protagonist.
Yeah.
Like, where she's kind of introduced into this. I've heard a few people talk about this, like, why isn't she a protagonist? And perhaps, like, it was written that way, maybe it wasn't totally working, but where they position her from the very get-go, and introduce Leo, introduce, like, this idea of Inception, and she gets into this world, and then she realizes that Leo has a problem, and then she tries to...
Yeah, that, you know what, that would have been way more interesting, because she's...
It would have been quite good.
A much more redeemable character, she's much more sympathetic, and all that exposition shit... problems that we've been having would have been fixed so much easier because she's the protagonist entering the world that she doesn't understand because she's new to it. So we are experiencing it from her point of view. So that would have been way better because that would have fixed all these exposition problems that they were having.
Hugely. Like I said, it would be following kind of like the same career model as The Matrix. Again, not a terrific
why don't
motion
you know
picture.
what? That would be great to pitch to like a different, not Nolan, a different director. remaking this film, but completely from Ariadne's perspective as her as the protagonist. I'd see that. That's a movie I'd enjoy. I'd enjoy that one.
I would probably enjoy that too.
But especially like all the work she's doing in this film is interesting. Like she has to create all the different landscapes,
and it looks awesome.
So so we get introduced to Ariadne, and she goes into the dreams for the first time, right? And once again, like bogged down by like Leo explaining, like, oh, people don't know they're in a dream. Like, do you know how did we get here? You know, like blah blah blah, explaining. And I find it so interesting when she says like, oh, what happens when you start bending the laws of physics, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we're gonna see something interesting here. Like she's gonna try something. What'd she do? She just folds the city. That's so, that's lame. Like, you're in a dream. You could do anything you want. She folds a city. She builds a bridge. It's like, okay. Like,
that kind of molded with me, I'll be honest. Like, because,
I'm like, that's cool and all, but, like, I would feel like if it's her first time there, she does seem to have this kind of, like, childlike innocence to her, too. I just feel she would have tried to do more. Like something just more imaginative than folding the city and building a bridge and a glass mirror, pow.
Yeah, but she is a literal architect, so it's like her main interest is going to be stuff that's fundamentally like architectural, like whether it be like the urban planning city, whether it be the bridge, things like that. So I thought that although like you're saying it wasn't terribly colorful, like a lot of things we saw was actually pretty suitable, like for her particular like character type.
Okay, fair point. It's just we're in dreams. It would have been more interesting to just see something, I guess, a little out of the ordinary, a little crazier.
By the way, I need to point out something. It's one interesting point in this scene. It was with the glass in the street, right? Directly ripped off from Satoshi Kon's feature-length anime, Perfect Blue.
Okay. I've never seen
Satoshi. Satoshi Kon, God rest his soul, was an anime director like back in like the 90s, early 2000s sort of, and I believe that Nolan, Darren Aronofsky, and maybe some others have cited him as a significant influence, or if they have not cited him, they definitely use his imagery. Like there are literal points in like I believe Black Swan that rip off directly from Perfect Blue. And
wait, I might. Okay, no. I think I have heard of this because I've seen like video essays talking about how Darren Aronofsky has taken from an anime. So it might be that particular one. I think he did it for Requiem for a Dream too. Like there's a bathtub scene.
Yes.
Okay, so I know what you're talking about.
Okay, Mike. I think I might be thinking of Paprika, which is another Satoshi Kon film. But yeah,
don't confuse me, man.
Sorry, but when we talk about like Nolan's imagination in this movie, we have to be fair to the people that he may or may not be ripping off. So
for sure,
I feel the obligation to mention Satoshi Kon. So what happens is that she's bending this world, right?
Right.
And as she's bending this world, you see like all the little, what do you call them? Like, I don't know, MCPs?
Like, the projections. The projections.
Yeah, like all the people, thank you, that's what they called them. All the little projections, they begin to sort of slowly notice her, which is a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, no, but that's something I found it, like, another thing. Like, that's such an interesting thing that they introduced in the film. They introduced it before, like, when the mob riot was happening. But, like, it's introduced even more here with, obviously, Leonardo DiCaprio explaining it. Because they feel that, like, that's something that didn't need to be full on explained. Like, maybe, like, a line here that says, these are the projections, whatever, like, be careful of them because they start to notice. But he goes on a whole monologue explaining.
And she incessantly asks questions about it, and it seems like something that could have been explained, perhaps, in one question?
Yeah, it's another thing where it's so much more interesting seeing her just kind of discovering it on herself visually,
Right.
Rather than just Cobb just blah blah blahing about it, and it's like, okay, now we know what it is. Like, not interesting. I don't. And we're introduced again to like Maul. being part of his projections and how she's a dangerous character, and she like comes in and stabs Ariadne, where we get like the one actual outburst of emotion from a character in this movie, which is great.
The other one being what, Leonardo going, "Oh God," at the window.
No, that doesn't count. That's wait. Yeah, and this brings me to like the next point. Like she wakes up and Joseph Gordon-Levitt like comes to like talk to her, and she's like screaming like, "You have issues! You have issues! Who's this mall? Who's this mall?" And Joseph Gordon-Levitt is like, "Yeah, he does." Okay, well, never mind that for a second. I just got to explain totems for you right now. So it's like,
never mind story. We have
it's like, oh yeah, he has issues, but you know what? It's fine. It doesn't matter. Okay, so the totem and like blah 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 about the totem, and then it's like this is such a serious issue in this film, and he brushes it to the side just to explain exposition to the audience. It's like, I don't give a shit what these totems are. Like let's find out more about what's going on with this issue. Like, and it's funny I'm saying that because I'm like, I think the characters talk too much, and that would have been probably more exposition about the wife. But I'm like,
But it would have been necessary exposition at a fitting point.
Yeah, and
I think
maybe we could have like same thing. We could have discovered more about these characters. Like, how does Joseph how does Joseph Gordon-Levitt feel about this? Because he's been working with Cobb for so long, and obviously he's very aware of it. Because in the first scene, he's like, "Oh, she's here," so he obviously knows all this, and he seems completely like he doesn't care. Like, "Oh, it's not an issue. Like, whatever." Like, he doesn't seem to treat it like it's important. Like, it's the most important issue in the whole film that they're dealing with, and how Cobb can easily fuck everything up. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character just doesn't care. He's so blasé about the whole thing, and he's the one who's most aware of it.
Yeah, perhaps it's to sort of speak to like sort of like the character's camaraderie, or just like how devoted he is to, I suppose, like his master is like his partner in crime.
Oh, so he's a slave.
So yeah, so like I think that's what Nolan was sort of saying, like, well, he's kind of blasé because he's not one to really aggressively call out Cobb for his personal issues, his personal flaws, which I sort of understand,
but Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character has shown in the film that he's very serious about getting the mission done. He knows the consequences of failing a mission because remember in the hotel scene earlier, he was the one that's like, well, what are we going to do? Like, we failed. And he was very concerned about it. So you would think that he would consider Maul a very serious issue when in dealing with their missions. And he does, like I said, it's so weird how he's just like, oh, it's his wife, she's dead, whatever. She fucks things up for us, but well, whatever. Like he's so detached from it, which is so absurd.
There's a lot of like convenient, weird characterizations like through this movie, whether it be like what the fuck, like Tom Hardy's character.
Oh God, yeah, we're about to meet him. We're about to meet his character.
Yeah, and just how
another useless personality. He's the forger. He disguises. He's like an actor. He disguises himself to trick the people.
An ability that should have been introduced right away with him.
Yeah,
that isn't.
He should have been there in the opening scenes.
Yes, he should have been there right from the get-go.
Instead of having him explain his fucking job, we as the audience would have just seen him do it, and we can get right away what he does.
I entirely agree. Like, I understand that Nolan wanted to, like, the whole film's like, it's a heist film. Like, I get that, it's pretty cool. Like, that as a basis, your premise, it's pretty cool. And like a heist film, like Ocean's 11, you're gonna say, oh, we're gonna get the best men.
Yeah, and there's the whole like montage of like getting the people.
They kind of try to do that here. It really doesn't work because like when you do that in a film, it has to be balanced. Every single character has to have like more or less like equal amount of screen time, equal amount of importance. We don't get that balance here. Like, they spend so much time in Ellen Page, and they spend seemingly a lot of time in Tom Hardy, although most of it's like a useless chase that has nothing to do with him.
Yeah, essentially Tom Hardy, all he does in this movie is solve problems. Like, somebody will like, how are we gonna do this? And Tom Hardy's like, we could do this. Oh, but how are we gonna do this? And Tom Hardy's like, well, what about this? Oh, good idea, Tom Hardy.
Oh my God. He is a fill-in-the-blank character, and probably explains why he has the most useless dream, which we'll again get to. Like, and are we at his point yet?
Yeah, we could skip ahead to his point. There's nothing really in between. It's fine.
So we're in Uganda
he's
now.
the next character that we meet to join the team, and once again, there's nothing interesting about him.
Not a thing. We're introducing him gambling, so I'm like, okay, what is this foreshadowing? Is he gonna do a bad gamble? No, he's just gambling.
I would have loved it if this was like Tom Hardy doing Bane in this movie.
That would have been great. That's a Tom Hardy doing anything.
Oh, Cobb, you merely adopted the traits. I was born in it, molded by it.
Just like any kind of color.
I just want to picture Bane now for the rest of the movie.
I think he's a terrific actor, and
he's great.
Nothing to work with in this movie. Nothing. He sits there. That's his character.
He's cool. That's his.
The fact that his segment involved and the fact that his segment does not involve him whatsoever. Like, what is this chase? Like, what does this tell us about anything?
Oh yeah, it's because the guys from the company that hired Cobb from the beginning, they're out to. Which, by the way, they're out to get him, and then we never see them ever. Like they're it's useless. It was a useless chase scene because it adds nothing to the plot. It adds nothing to the characters. It adds nothing to nothing.
Like this whole chase sequence has no tension to it because I'm like, okay, well I know Leo's okay because we have another 90 minutes left in this movie.
You know what I think? You know what I think they added it because us, they realized nothing interesting has happened for a long time. Let's add a little chase sequence just to keep people not from falling asleep.
Like I suppose so, but this chase sequence had me falling asleep. I was going in and out because it has no tension to it and it comes out of nowhere.
When he gets stuck, would have been interesting. When he gets stuck in the two walls, and he's like,
and he comes through the other side. I'm like, what the fuck? It got real surrealist at that point, but I don't know.
It's like he was just born.
And then Ken Wannabe pops up in a very convenient location.
Yes! Oh, dude, I couldn't fucking stop laughing because there's this guy going after him and boom with the car door. It's like that. He hits the guy with the car door. This car comes out of nowhere. That made me laugh. And then Leo sits in the car with Sato, and the way Sato is sitting in the car, I don't know if he's trying to hide himself, so people don't see through the window. It's just so ridiculous. He's just crouched down in the seat, I can't take it seriously. I can't.
It's really corny, which wouldn't be a problem.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said it's really corny.
Oh, corny.
His whole corny, super corny.
Sorry, I heard a different word.
Got to get down on me.
Well, that's why he's crouched down like that, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, he's just I fucking Leo the whole entire film. That's probably why he looks so tense. He has a raging heart on the whole entire film. That's a look in his face.
Maybe that's why it takes him so long to die, because the shot wound was so high, but all the blood was flowing to his penis. That's why it took him so long to die.
But yeah, it's a corny introduction, and tonally it doesn't fit with the rest of the movie.
Yeah, but they had to bring it back. They had to bring it back somehow, right?
In that scene?
They had to bring him back, man. Sato is so important to the film.
If you say so. And then they drive along, and Tom Hardy's just sort of standing there. I'm just like, oh, did the scene happen without me?
Where did they go?
Cut to next character introduction in a very dark, dimly lit room.
I don't even... what's his name? Yusuf?
Let me look it up.
He's the chemist. Let's just call him the chemist.
He's useless is what I call him.
Again, another... And this is the worst part. This character has the least to do than any of the characters. Yeah. All he literally does the entire film is talk about this chemist potion he's made, the sedative that he's made. That's all he does to explain it. This stuff will make you go deep. We will be out for that's all he does is explain the science behind this sedative that he's made.
Which makes me wonder, could it have been done by, let's say, Ken Wannabe's character?
Literally
or somebody?
Any character that already exists. They don't.
It could have been done by Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
No, but they need this guy because they need someone to drive the car while they're all sleeping.
It could have been just I don't know.
No, they need someone to drive. Oh, but in all fairness, he does have one funny moment when the car's flipping over and he lands. He's like, "Did everyone see that?" And oh yeah, and then he keeps driving. So at least he got something, but it's the tiniest something in the world.
Yeah, it's just it's just more clutter. You're like, who's this guy? And they try to introduce him, and it's that bar scene. We're talking about cinematography, right?
Right.
The cinematography is very on and off for this with me for this movie. Okay. Obviously, the more extravagant scenes I think are beautifully done, but when it comes to obviously we're talking about just character interaction,
right.
It's shot reverse shot, and not even the most interesting shot reverse shot. Here it looks like my contrast on my TV was way toned down.
Right.
It's just not a very good introduction to this character, who's a very light character, fundamentally, and he's they try to make him this dark and brooding.
Yeah, it's true because especially all these scenes are just in this dark room. It's
a lot of darkness.
Yeah, and it's so weird because for the most part up till now, it's been pretty bright, the film.
Yeah, the whole Uganda sequence, I think, just go to hell. It was just filler. I was like, it's like a check your watch kind of scene.
Right.
Like you say, it's there to make it quote unquote exciting.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it's not terribly exciting when we have no investment.
This is also the scene which had people getting confused if Cobb was in a dream or not, because Cobb goes under to test the thing, and then every time he flips his token, he spins the top, you never see it fully, something always knocks it down or something. So this is the fucking scene that had everyone going back to be like, well, remember when he fell asleep? Maybe he's still in a dream this whole time.
Everybody in the IMDb message boards like repeating the same forum topic over and over again, probably. Like, and that's all good and dandy, but for me, it's like when you have that kind of, I'll say like a little like gimmick. Some people call it an Easter egg. Some people, I call it purposely inserted fan theory. When you had that obvious presentation, you're like, oh my gosh, is this a dream or not? to me, that it can be interesting if it fundamentally means something.
Right.
Like if I could think of an example, I'll think of a completely different film, but it's called The Innocents with Delaware Kerr, 1963. It's a horror film, so like I said, completely different film.
Right.
But that whole movie is basically whether or not there are actually ghosts. And you're like, okay, well, what does it exactly say? Well, when you're thinking about like this question, it says a lot about her particular character, about like how she feels, about her paranoia, and it makes you question like her integrity and things like that. And it's really interesting because when you think about stand theory, you're really getting invested in like the actual core emotional content of that film. But Inception, like when I think about the stand theory, to me it doesn't really matter.
No, it's like, it's who cares if he's in a dream.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, he's in a dream, but how does that frame the film differently?
Well,
like
because remember, there's the whole thing with Maul. Maybe because part of the theories too is like, was Maul right? Maybe they were in a dream this whole time, and she wasn't crazy, even though, I don't know, man. It's like, who cares? People have no time on their hands.
But if she wasn't crazy, then she wouldn't be so homicidal throughout this movie.
But that's the thing; she's only homicidal. Her projection is homicidal.
So I'm not gonna buy this idea that she somehow was a sensible one throughout this movie.
It's part of Cobb's paranoia, right? That if he might still, that's why he always like spins the top.
Right.
But that's the thing, like, that's something that's interesting for the character. That once again they. Like, maybe that's the only interesting thing with Cobb's character is that this paranoia he has, that he's still in a dream. That's why he's always spinning his top, right? To make sure that he's in a dream or he's awake. But
how does that paranoia play into the main conflict of the film is what I'm wondering.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. That's exactly.
His guilt, because it ties in with his guilt about his wife, but... Like I said, it's done so poor. It's executed so poorly.
Yeah.
It could have been so interesting, but it's executed so poorly that, like I said, you don't give a shit about Cobb like the whole film. You don't care.
Because like for you to have like this question of is he not, it has to play into main conflict for me, and it does not play in the main conflict of this film.
But that's the thing. Like Cobb's, like his inner demons, they're interesting. Like the guilt that he feels, the paranoia. They're interesting stuff. But once again, like this film. Interesting things executed poorly.
Should be a tagline.
Yeah,
interesting things executed poorly.
Yeah, we're in that den, and this made me fucking laugh. Like just the guy who goes to slap the sleeping guy.
Yes, the old man.
Made me laugh. You're not supposed. I don't think it's supposed to be funny, but it made me laugh. And then it's like, why do people? Oh yeah, it's like why do people come here to sleep? And then you have this like old fart that comes in. He's like, no, they come to be woken up. And I'm like, okay, you know what? It's wait, hold on. It's like stupid line, whatever. I can handle it, but he doesn't stop. He's like, they come to be woken up. Dream is now their reality. What is it to you? Like, why do you need to add this? Like, it could have been fine. Just they come to be woken up. The audience gets it. But no, let's explain further. The dream is now the reality. They don't treat the real life like it's real life because they like to go into the dreams. The real life is not good enough for them. The dreams are now the reality. They treat it's like, yeah, we get it. Like, shut up. Like, and it's just that like last part. What is it to you? Like, who was, like, I don't remember anyone being judgmental about it. Like, it's like, I don't remember anyone being, like, judgmental about it, you know? No one was like, oh, what the hell are they doing to sleep here? You know, like, he was asking just a genuine question. It's like,
maybe the guy is, like, he's been harassed about this several times over. Like, the authorities come in and say, oh, what's you got going on around here?
That was it to you.
Yeah, seriously.
Was it to you? Maybe he just gets easily offended. I don't know.
Probably,
we don't know this character. He has like one line and you never see him again, so whatever.
Oh boy, so are we out of Uganda yet? Tell me we're out of Uganda.
I hope so. Yeah, I think, because in my notes, I have Robert, only interesting characters. I'm assuming we get introduced to Cillian Murphy for the first time.
Yeah, we get introduced to Cillian Murphy, and who is, like we said, is a great actor, does a great job with the only fleshed out three-dimensional character.
Yeah, and that's the thing. This scene where we get introduced to him, where he's next to his father's deathbed, and fat businessman comes to talk to him. It's an interesting scene. We get our first actually like engaging, interesting scene in the whole movie that has characters with subtext. Actual subtext.
Absolutely, without anything spoken to you. Like, we get the conflict right away.
He has like a few comments like, oh, it's a cherished father memory. Oh, I put that there and stuff. And it's like, but those are like necessary lines. But there's still, with those lines, there's still so much more happening
underneath.
Yeah.
It less is more in that scene. And like right away, when the fat businessman comes in, we understand what fat businessman wants, and we understand the issue between fat businessman and Cillian Murphy, and it's all done in what seems like, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, like what, under 2 minutes?
I have a feeling that all Cillian Murphy stuff was accidental. Like, they didn't purposely be like, oh, this is great like, the writer wasn't like, oh, this is great subtext. I think it was like, oh, we got this character stuff, just write something quickly. Just write something quickly so we can go back to Cobb.
You know what? It actually does feel like it, because the writing style in that scene is so incongruent with the rest of the film.
Like I said, it was probably accidental, and it's funny how, like, the part that they cared the least about is the part that ended up being the most interesting. But that's an assumption. Maybe they put a lot of thought into those scenes. Maybe they did, but that's just how it comes across.
I have a lot of assumptions about this movie. I think maybe there's some producer meddling in the pre-production and some of the earlier scenes why they add so much exposition. Maybe there's some, like, idiot in the room, like, constantly telling Christopher Nolan's brother, I don't know, I understand this, and they add upon it, and maybe that's, like, the one point that people say, okay, we can understand this right away, but, I beg to differ. Like, you can understand some of the earlier things with that heavy exposition,
right? And
you can understand this without any heavy exposition. This is how, like, every single other scene in this film should have been written.
Exactly.
Because it's so tight,
but,
and, like you said, it's so subtle.
This is something that I always felt about this film, and especially fans of the film. You brought up the argument that when you say you don't like Inception, people will say like, oh, you didn't get it. It was too smart, or blah, blah, blah. And I feel like that's the big thing about this film. There's a lot of, they do tackle a lot of these concepts that, you do need to have. I'm sure there's like a depth of knowledge that you need to have about this stuff. And it goes really deep, and you need to do your research, obviously. And they do this with Interstellar too, with all the science mumbo jumbo. And I feel this movie tricks people into thinking it's a smart movie, because it's like they spew so much of this dream psychological mumbo jumbo, and I honestly don't think half the people actually understood what was being spewed. And so they're like, well, I didn't understand it, so it must be a smart movie. Or people who did, because a lot of people did understand. I'm not saying everyone's stupid.
They feel gratified.
Yeah, but a lot of people did understand it. Like, I understood what they were saying, and they're like, wow. But instead of it being like, oh wow, they're explaining so much, like, I don't need this explained, it became more of a, wow, they're saying so much mumbo jumbo, this must be a really smart movie. And it's pseudo-intellectual. It's all pseudo-intellectual. It's just giving the illusion that it's incredibly smart, but it's like, if you open a book and memorize the book and spout that out, you'll sound smart too, but doesn't necessarily mean you're smart.
No, it's a difference between, like, knowledge and, like, cleverness.
Yeah.
Like, the exposition in this film was just knowledge. That Cillian Murphy scene, it's cleverness.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a different type of smartness. It's cleverness because they managed to establish so many points in such little time. That's how you do, like, a clever scene. The rest of the movie is not terribly clever because it doesn't understand that less is more.
Well, like you said, it's like sitting in a lecture, right? That's how they treat the rest of the movie, as if it's a lecture. And they could have done it in a way that it didn't feel like a lecture. It could have felt like characters who actually know what they're talking about it.
And oh boy, like, and of course, you know, this great scene, it's immediately comes to an end.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're entering like the preparation, right? They're planning the heist. That's the part of the heist film we're at. Okay, we're planning the heist, and we're given this. It's not really a montage, but it's kind of a montage because it's like long scenes within the montage. But either way, these guys. This is the whole part where they're like, "How are we gonna do this? Like, oh, how are we gonna make him think of this so it's not his idea but it is his idea," and blah blah blah, and like Eames, Tom Hardy, like, well, Cobb, you've got to understand, we have to make him think that he thought of the idea himself, but how are we going to do it, you know? Who is this fat businessman? I will study him and I will do it. Yeah, it's like this is the whole segment of basically problem and Tom Hardy has a solution. Problem, Tom Hardy's solution. Because I guess they figured, well, we got to give him something. We can't just introduce him and have him sit there doing nothing, so.
Which is fine. Yeah, but I say fine, like, in the littlest of terms. because I barely remember that scene, I'll be honest with you. And it's like, I didn't take terribly much issue with it, but at the same time, it just feels like terribly unnecessary.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't have issue with it. It's just boring. That's my issue. This is where I even wrote this as a note. This is where I start to zone out. Like, I was just like, they're just talking. Like, once again, it's like sitting in a lecture, and every experience I have sitting in a lecture, especially in university, I zoned out so easily because you can't just sit there listening to someone lecture you, because we're not dealing with characters here. We're dealing with just people who are spouting knowledge. It gets boring and it's so unengaging. This whole I barely remember it because this whole segment is just that. Like they just talk and talk and talk, and they're spouting knowledge and explaining stuff to you. You know, more explanations about how this serum is going to work and we're going to go into a deep sleep. More explanations about this and that. Oh, and this is the thing that completely threw me off, because they're talking about the time differences, right? Oh, it's going to be this many weeks and this many months. And then the last one is 10 years. Like, yeah. And they're on a ski. What were they doing for 10 years on a ski hill? Were they just skiing casually, until it was time to do it? Until the last minute, they're like, oh shit, we should probably start doing this.
That's a very good point. Yeah, because it didn't seem that much longer than the other one. So it's like, what is your how much does each one increase by? Like, how many times over? Because it even on an exponential scale, it doesn't add up.
Yeah, but that's not the issue. I like the idea that, time is slower and each one gives them more time. But for me, it's like, that's the thing. When we get introduced to them at, let's say, the ski hill, which is apparently 10 years, it's like we get them right when they woke up in the ski hill going, and it's like, well, they were here for 10 years, and if this whole thing is supposed to be, what were they doing? Why are they always pressed for time? They have 10 years to do this. Why are they like, oh shit, we got to do this right now? It's like, you got 10 years, man. I think you got more than enough time to go down this hill. It doesn't take 10 years to go down this mountain. Come on.
Oh, yeah. It's some of the. That was one of the plot holes, I believe. When people were talking about just okay, well, how long is each segment? And the ski hill comes up constantly. I mean, the ski hill comes up constantly because it's a really stupid scene.
But even in the hotel, they have 6 months. What were they doing for 6 months? Why is it that all the action is happening when they have to do it now because we're pressed for time? What were they doing the other 5 months? Just chilling in the bar? I
think they would say they're pressed for time because people were on their tail. Right. That term we were using before. What do you call it? The projections were on their tail. The projection is security were on their tail. That's why they say they're pressed for time.
But then it's at the same time. Is this happening right away at the beginning, or when they just wake up, or did they? That's the thing. The whole time thing's how long have they been there? How long has this been happening? Are they using, because they said they can't wake up until the time is clocked out, right?
Right.
I remember Yusuf saying that, if you die, you just go into limbo. You have to wait till the time runs out to wake up. So that's why that leaves the idea that, well, they have all this time, so what are they doing? Or if they finished all the other stuff really fast, do they have to wait like the 6 weeks in like the first one till it's done and they're just sitting there in the rain kind of thing?
No idea, man. Like, for a movie with this much exposition, like, something...
The one thing they don't explain.
The one thing they don't explain...
Oh, yeah, and there was something else I wanted to say, too, about the segment. They have a whole monologue explaining how the kick works. Why?
We already seen the kick.
We've seen the kick. We understand how it works, because visually we saw him get kicked into the bathtub. Why are they explaining it to us? And it's not even like a sentence. How does the kick work? Well, it's that sensation of falling. It makes you wake up. Done. No, it's like a whole monologue again and like a bunch of clips of him like knocking over Joseph Gordon-Levitt's chair. And it's like, why? Like, we know how this works. This is so unnecessary.
It seems like something that was like, maybe there's perhaps multiple drafts for this film. And like there's like different explanations like spread out throughout and like different points.
And they forgot that they...
And they forgot. Yeah, that's the thing. They forgot. And like we have... Like, they thought it best to reiterate the explanation over here. And...
Jesus.
Like, I'm thinking, like as a heist film, this isn't a great heist film. Because a heist film needs to be tight. There needs to be no fat and no repetition. The points need to be brought out quickly and it needs to be fast-moving. And this movie, like, to its core, it fails as a heist film.
It takes so long before they get to anything. Like, before they get to what they need to do. It's just... It's impossibly long. This first half of this movie just is so boring. And I don't understand. That's why people who go on and on about how great it is, I honestly think they only remember the great parts, like the second half of the movie. Because I don't understand how anyone could sit through this first half of the movie and be invested and engaged. Like, who are these people honestly sitting here like, oh wow, yeah, everything they're saying is so fascinating. Like, I don't understand who these people are. Like, who can really sit through this?
There are those people.
For sure. Okay, it's a personal feeling.
If you ask the question, who are these people, they're going to be those people who enjoy this like repetitive.
I'm sorry, those people. Your feelings, or I insulted you in any way. I'm sorry. If you could sit through this, then I admire you. Okay, so this is the funny thing. Next thing we're introduced to the elevator, like how Cobb's dreams, how he compartmentalizes and locks up his dreams. Again, great concept.
Yes.
Fascinating. I love the elevator idea, but
it's pretty cool.
How did they make this so boring?
It made it boring because it's like we see Leo canoodling with Mal, and Mal is supposed to be menacing when she approaches Ellen Page, and Mal looks like she's throwing a hissy fit, and it's incredibly unconvinced. She just kind of looks at her like, "Argh," and the scene is shot so glumly, and we're probably thinking what Ellen Page is thinking, just like, who is this bitch?
Yeah, who the fuck is this? Ellen Page, who's shorter than her, could knock her down.
Exactly. Like, she could just drop kick her.
I just thought of it. Her Marion Cotillard's performance here kind of feels like when you tell a child to be like, okay, you're playing the villain, be like menacing. It's kind of like how the child would play.
Be grumpy.
Like, yeah, menacing, you know? Like this,
like with the chin slightly down and like looking up with like the eyes and stuff like that. It's
just not believable. Like, actually, a kid playing this would have been more believable because you expect a kid to do it like that. I can't take her seriously. I can't take her character. Every time I see her character, I just can't take it seriously at all.
She seems like she's from a different film. And I think one of my issues is that, like, I don't understand, like, what Leo saw in her to begin with.
Like the character?
Like what Cobb saw in her. Like Joseph Gordon-Levitt says, oh, she's very beautiful. But
no.
Time, like,
he says she was very lovely.
Oh, she's very... Excuse me. Okay, she was very lovely.
That's what he saw in her. She was a lovely human being.
I have no idea what personality trait he was actually alluding to, because
her loveliness. Come on, follow.
Because like whenever you see Mal introduced, like whether it be like through that overlong like flashback when we see like exactly how she perished, etc., she's unlikable in every single frame. I'm like, where's the love intrigue?
Yeah, but that's the thing too. Like, other than the scene where she kills herself, the majority of the film we just see Cobb's projection of her, which is this very vengeful, manipulative kind of like projection, because it's his guilt projecting her, right?
Yeah, I can see that, but we see him there talking to her as if he loved her, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, what's he loving? What exactly is there to love over here? Like, show me that side of Mal, and it's never done convincingly.
Once again, the famous tagline of the film: "Great idea, poorly executed."
No, thank you. Please repeat that. Yeah.
That this whole segment, that's what this is, because the elevator thing is cool, and they somehow turned this like really fascinating idea into like a boring segment.
And what makes no sense to me is, like, after that, we don't see that strong of a confrontation between Ellen Page's character and Cobb. It should have happened kind of like at that moment, but it doesn't really.
And that's another scene where we go into his memory of his kids, where he sees his kids for the last time, and he's like, another time where fucking silence would have been amazing here. Like, shut the fuck up, let the scene happen, live the moment. But he's talking, and he's doing a play-by-play of what's happening. He's like, I'm standing there watching them, and the boy is my son, and the girl is my daughter, and he's digging in the ground, maybe for a worm, I don't know. Maybe he'll eat it. He likes worms. And I want to call out their names and see their faces, but I'm afraid to do it. Oh, and there's a man standing there giving me an envelope. I opened the envelope. It's like, shut the fuck up. We can see what you're doing. It's just fucking Cobb talking. It's the Matt Damon scene in Interstellar. Like, just shut up and live in the moment. We're not stupid as an audience. Like, let us, like, oh my God. And he's not, like I said, he's not saying, like, he could say some things, but he's, like I said, he's just doing the sports replay of, like, what we can see. It's
a sports replay is actually exciting.
Yeah, that would have been great. That whole scene in slow-mo replay.
Oh, Lord. Okay, and, of course, Ellen Page just looks at him sort of glumly, very passively, like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay. I'm like, okay, I guess this makes sense. Like, I don't know, like, again, no proper confrontation.
Yeah, but she kind of has a confrontation because when they wake up, she's kind of like, you got to tell people about this.
I guess so, yeah, but
he doesn't do it. He's like, no, I don't. No. And she's like, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll just keep doing it. It's fine. It's like, okay, fine.
She lacks persistence.
Yeah.
Like his character turns on and off.
She confronts him again when the train hits, and she knows what's going on. And she's like, you gotta tell them. And he's like, no, I don't want to tell them. He's like, you gotta tell them. I don't want to tell them. Like, he's like a child, you know, like trying to argue with a child kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it'll be fine. And then she never confronts him ever again, and she doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, it's only when, you know, they actually have their lives in danger that she actually does convincingly speak to him.
Not until they're in limbo, which we'll get to, because that scene is fucking awful. I hate that fucking scene. The confrontation with his wife, like, I don't know who,
Lord.
The writing in that scene is awful. Like,
honestly, like, when I say, like, there wasn't a proper conversation between Ellen Page and Cobb, she wasn't terribly ardent about it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like at this point, she is kind of like slightly challenging him, and then she turns off again, and then she's suddenly okay with this.
It's kind of like set up earlier when she's like, oh, okay, do you want to check out this maze? He's like, no, don't show it to me. And she's like, oh, why? Because then Mal will know about it. And he's like, he doesn't say anything, which, like, wow, fucking subtext for Cobb for once. and it's like, you would think from then on she would always be cautious, but like you said, yeah, she's turned on and off. Like, she only confronts him when it's convenient for the movie to have a confrontation, because it's like, well, we gotta add something here, you know?
The story driving the characters.
Yeah, because that's the thing. The rest of the time, it's like, she doesn't care. She's off smooching Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like, in the hotel. She's like, that's just, where's the they give her character. They're finally in the play. Away from her. It's so frustrating. Getting to the Inception part, and not even the Inception part. We're getting to the beginning of the Inception.
And instead,
I have a
they
question.
Make her so limp.
They needed to hire this flight attendant to help them out, right? When did they train this person to do this? Like, did they just get on the plane and were like, okay, can you just operate this thing for us? Hook us up, press the button, and just, like, look at the time? Like, when did this happen?
I assume, like, in this film's universe, like, it's more or less, like, present tense, except with, like, existing technology nobody knows about, that they might not be the only guys kind of doing this. And I assume that because of that, there are probably maybe a few hundreds of people in the world who probably know about this kind of scheme, and probably among those few hundreds of people, they're likely able to hire somebody to sort of pose as a stewardess.
Yeah, they mention at some point where they're like, well, you know, you'll have to rent out the whole cabin, you'll have to buy out the stewardess. And it's just like if they had to buy out the stewardess, it's very possible that they just happened to get a stewardess who had no idea what she was doing, and they had to spend about like an hour.
They said they bought out the stewardess.
Yeah, well, sorry, they had to like rent out. Like they had to pay her so she wouldn't.
Oh, what the hell? Okay.
Yeah, to help.
Well, I forget my somewhat sensible theory. I guess they just paid her and.
Well, that's essentially what they said, like earlier in the film. And also, I don't understand why Sato has to go with them. He's like dead weight, literally, because he does die.
He's problematic. He's just like extra liability.
And like his reasoning is, I want to make sure you do it. But it's kind of like it's like movies where the protagonists are stuck with a child that they have to carry around with them. They're useless. They help nothing. It's like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where they have Willie following them around, who's a completely useless character who just bogs them down completely. Why does he need to be there?
I think he needs to be there probably to actually showcase the kind of danger the team is in, because you need to have somebody who is like mortally wounded, who is at risk of falling into this endless limbo.
Did they though? Did they really need this?
No, and like on like a logical level, you don't need that many people on a mission like this. Like in real world, when you do a SWAT mission, like a Black Ops, whatever, you have as few people as possible, because the more people you have, the more liability. Ken Wanabe's character, I'd hope he is smart. I'd hope he is smart enough to realize that.
Well, yeah, he does seem to be a man of intelligence to a certain degree, because he owns a whole corporation, like.
Exactly. So it's like, because like let's say the team's mission didn't go properly. You're gonna find out it doesn't go properly.
Wait, hold on.
Afterwards, right?
Is Sato smart, or does he just have connections? It's just people he knows.
He's a that character's a big ambiguity.
Is he ambiguous in every sense of the term? That would have been an interesting character trait, like giving him a little sexual ambiguity. You know, he didn't want Cobb to go on this mission to incept this guy. He wanted Cobb to go on this mission with him so they could get closer together.
Pretty much, yeah.
If we go on this mission together, I will get to know him, and he will get to know me, and then we could start a relationship. It is a love bond that will be formed forever.
That's the only reason I could think, like, why, like, Sato is so into Cobb.
He's into him, all right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. So, they finally get on the plane.
And now, here we are. We're finally in the dream. Something, like, interesting shit is about to happen. I paused the movie. This is an hour into the film. A fucking hour into the fucking film. It takes us an hour to get to the action. Like,
I was flabbergasted. And then when there's actual, like, fundamental conflict, when the character's in danger and they have a problem you need to solve, it's like, what, like 20 minutes afterwards? You're like, 80 minutes? 80 minutes into a 2-hour film.
That means we spent a whole hour for setup.
You spent the majority of the film for setup.
For an hour.
We're getting really repetitive, but when you spend 80 minutes of your film for setup, you have an exposition problem.
It's hard not to be repetitive in what we're saying when this is literally all that's happening in the movie.
So they finally get into his dream, and it's a city. How exciting.
Yeah. And it's raining. It's raining. Don't forget, because Yusuf, beautiful. Like, what we get a little poopy pee-pee joke here, where he's like, "Oh, why didn't you go use the bathroom before you started?" And he's like, "Ha ha, fucking ha," and that's his actual line, "Ha ha, fucking ha." He actually says that, and it's probably the worst delivery in the whole film, because it's such an awkward line to say.
It is an awkward line, but I'll take humor over exposition in this film like any day of the week. But again, we're in a fucking city. It's raining. Who dreams of this? When I'm dreaming, they're the boringest people on Earth, which is true. They are the boringest people on Earth, so of course they have the boringest dreams. But
yeah,
I don't necessarily have the most memorable dreams. When I do remember them, however, they're pretty goofy. They kind of have very interesting settings. Like, they have a whole bunch of like crazy architecture.
I gotta say, in terms of dreams, they got pretty stable, ordinary dreams. Because every dream I had was always fucking absurd. Even like the ordinary, I use air quotes for ordinary style dreams, still had like a real sense of absurdity to them. So
yes,
it's so boring, these dreams. And
Well,
I
I'm
know
confused,
people are gonna comment on this if they listen to it. It's purposely supposed to be realistic. Like, if they suddenly appeared in, like, Disneyland, I'm pretty sure Robert was going to be like, what the fuck am I doing here, you know? Like, if they made it a New York landscape, it's, for him, it would make it more believable for him to not know he's in a dream, you know? That's why it's a hotel. The Ski Mountain's kind of odd, but, like, but that's the thing. The whole point was that they're supposed to trick him into thinking it's real.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
But...
I'm defending this movie.
No, that's actually a very good defense.
But, I do agree. We're in dreams. It would have been fun to see something a little more interesting. But in their defense, like, they have to trick this guy, so unfortunately we're met to, like...
we're stuck with, But even then, it's like, you say they had to give, like, a very sort of, like, mundane setting, but, like, even then, you could have come with a more interesting city. This looks like downtown Toronto. I don't know. Like Cillian Murphy, as a character, as a businessman, you're going all around the world.
Right.
They come up with something a bit more interesting. I mean, seriously, like
maybe like a city with a little more life to
if you wake up in your Tokyo and you're driving a cab, I mean, that's not totally unusual. But here, it's like so dull. And I know what you're saying. Like,
and it's very gray too. Like, there's a lot of gray.
This desaturation.
It had a little more vibrancy to it, for sure. And this is something that made me laugh. So they hijack this cab, they pick up Cillian Murphy, and they pull out the gun and stuff, and he's just like, "Oh, great!" Like his reaction it made me laugh because it's like, well, he's used to it. He's just like, "Ah, great!" Like just another Tuesday.
Probably because, like, if you're a rich businessman, this is always a worry. Yeah. Like, it's not always easy being, like, rich. Like,
you know, like, because we've had so much subtext with this character already, the great, like, you feel like, maybe this is something that's happened. Because, you know, he does have his lines after, where like, he's so quick about it. He's like, here's my wallet, it's $500. And later he's like, you know, I'm insured for, like, $10 million in kidnapping. So it's like he's used to this, you know? It's
it's kind of interesting, yeah. Yeah, because, like, because he's reacting to the scene like a character. Like an actual fleshed out character, and he's reacting into a way that is kind of specific to his character. Like, this kind of defeated young guy who's probably doesn't really think of himself as much, and, like, he's in a situation. Of course, he's not going to get too headstrong.
And I feel like what's great is that we can actually say this about his character, because he's the only person in this film who actually has a character that we can like analyze and break down. That when he does something that maybe is a little wooden, we could be like, but you know, the character, that could be something part of him.
They hijack him, and then complications arise.
Yeah, a train comes out of fucking nowhere. Just fucking mauls them down.
I wanted to see her, like, in the front seat, you know, like in, like, a little train conductor hat, like pulling the horn. That would have been, like...
Oh, that would have been great!
But...
choo-choo!
That would have been perfect, but, like, I guess I camp it up a little, like, have some fun. But, I mean, it's a neat effect. Like Nolan... I give him credit where credit's due. He wants to do something analog, and it looks pretty cool.
Like I said, we're finally getting some interesting action in this film, which is part of it is unfortunate because by the point of this film, I'm already gone. I'm unengaged and uninvested. So I'm like, oh, action, but I'm like enjoying it in the most disconnected way possible.
Exactly. Like, and it's interesting, but it's also like not really all that psychedelic.
Like, yeah, it's like, oh, it's like when you're watching videos on YouTube and you stumble across something interesting in a myriad of, like, boring videos, and you're like, oh, okay, that was fun. Okay, what's next? Like, I'm so uninvested in the story that, like, the action happens, and I'm like, cool, action, fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, you know, they try to hide Cillian Murphy, and... which is, you know, one of the few kind of, like, interesting conflicts in this film is, like, you know, as you're saying, like, trying to make this all very realistic for Cillian Murphy. I mean, that's, like, to me, that's really the core interesting component of this whole midsection is, like, trying to keep, you know, Cillian Murphy convinced. And then the henchmen come along. And
because... and then they find out, basically, that Cillian Murphy, he's had training for this in case there's hijackers.
Yes.
And then yeah, like Cobb, you know, has a whole argument with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. You know, it was your job. You know, he's like, sorry.
And this shootout is not terribly interesting, in my own opinion.
Although I'll admit I do love Tom Hardy being like, "You got to think big, boy." And he pulls out like the humongous gun and just blows it up. Like that was funny. It
was just like kind of action I wanted.
Yeah.
Like that kind of like, I don't want to, again, Matrix I know probably another eye roll for me mentioning the Matrix, but like the Matrix, like, it's like the idea there is like think big, be crazy.
Yeah.
And you wanted more of that in this film, but
and especially
it's so
like they're
grounded.
in dreams, like they can come up with big, interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, you know what they should have dreamt? Like a fucking cannon, like an 18th century cannon, just like
exactly.
Boom.
Because
That
Tom
would have
Hardy,
been funny. But remember, this is not a comedy. This is a.
because
This is a serious film.
Yeah, exactly. Like Tom Hardy, like he should have, like again, he's a super underwritten character. Like if they added any sort of color to him, maybe he would have like had more interesting things to come up with.
That would have been funny. Like instead of the machine, like this weird rocket monster, just like a giant cannon on his shoulder.
It was funny, but I want to see like more of that throughout the film. I'm like, that's kind of cool. What else can you see? Not much.
No, that's it. Yeah, no, that's it. That's literally the only time he does anything kind of remotely fun with the whole idea of like, whoa, dream big. It's like, why even set up that concept if you're never going to use it again?
Because and then when it actually like it was Tom Hardy's dream, right? It was a ski mountain, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was his dream.
He's not dreaming big there.
Well, he's dreaming big because it's a mountain, and mountains are really big.
He is dreaming of the first level of GoldenEye 64. Did you ever play that game? Like the snow setting in Russia? Yeah. That's what he's dreaming
I remember that one. Was that the one you can like enter the toilets and go into the vents?
Yes, where you go on top.
I remember. I used to spend a lot of time in those vents, and like someone would always like plant themselves pointed at like the toilet seat underneath, and there was always one idiot like who ran underneath and like pow, and like
oh my god, perfect. And of course, like, and I always love like sneaking and like going to the top of the tower, doing the sniper thing, pointing down. Oh my god, I'm thinking. Sorry, my mind's drifting because I'm trying to think of something fun.
I used to love picking up the knives and just throwing knives at people. I didn't give a shit anymore. I was just like, I'm gonna just throw knives at you.
That was a hard mission, like a hard first stealth mission. God, that fucking polygonal, probably extremely dated first-person shooter, like that first mission alone is so much more tension than.
Anyways, we digress.
Yeah. Anyways, so.
Okay, so we're introduced to two major conflicts on their mission. We got immediately Cobb's subconscious is attacking them with the train, which is so weird because you don't see Maul till like the end,
later on,
till the like third dream, right?
Yeah.
I don't think
anything.
We don't see him sabotaging it in any way in the second dream.
No, yeah, that's true, right? And she's not. She's on a ski mountain though, right?
Yeah, she's the one that shoots Cillian Murphy. But this is the thing. Like I think, because the train feels so stupid.
It feels very supplanted.
It's like,
it feels
what
very
was the point?
Yeah.
Like they're already dealing with the fact that like there was enough conflict with Cillian Murphy's projections attacking them and protecting him. Like, was the train really necessary? And I get it. They're using the train to show, like, whoops, Cobb, his mental state is not the strongest, and his subconscious is attacking. I get it. But if they were going to go with that, at least have Maul or something casually appear throughout. Not just the fucking train and then her, she's in the dream suddenly, pow, shot him. Like,
because, like, I wasn't really under the impression that the train really complicated things that much for them. Seems like they resolved that pretty quickly. But then
it's like train came by, they were like, whoops.
Yeah, and then the next problem, the one that was significant, was, Cillian Murphy's henchman.
Yeah, which is an actual issue.
Yeah, which is an actual issue. So the train just had nothing to do with anything. It's a cool looking effect, but beyond that, and it's one that's memorable in terms of like actual like imagery. But beyond that, it's very
it's just to shock the audience. It's just to shock you. The audience, like, oh, whoa, a train! Where did that come from? Trains don't belong in cities, not on the streets. And I get it. They were trying to set up that like Cobb's invading the dreams and sabotaging it. But like I said, don't give it at the beginning and then at the end. Like, have it planted at least throughout with, like, Maul maybe hanging out at the bar and it's like, oh, fuck. Like try to ignore her kind of thing, or, like just anything. And they start on this whole, like, what's the combination? They want to have a combination number that they're trying to plant into like that was something clever in the film. That I'll admit.
This
that
is
was
fun.
something pretty clever. That they plant this like number and they like keep repeating it until like the end when there's the safe and that's the number to the safe. So they've planted in him and like that I'll give credit to the film. They have a lot of clever things of how they're planting the idea in his head. So like how they go from level to level to make sure that when he like gets kicked into like back into the upper levels, he's kind of coming up with the idea himself and stuff. Like, so they have a very clever way of doing it.
It's pretty cool. And Tom Hardy's character actually comes into play in a very interesting way.
Yeah, but it's not Tom Hardy playing it. It's Fat Businessman.
Yeah, Fat Businessman, right.
So Tom Hardy technically still has nothing to do as a person. Yeah, and then we go back into some more. They're not quite done with the exposition yet, because now they got to explain Limbo that they just introduced to us. We're just completely randomly introduced to Limbo here, right when they start. This is a problem that I noticed in Interstellar 2. But not Interstellar 2, the sequel. I meant Interstellar as well.
Let's talk about nightmares.
So this happens in Interstellar as well, where they fucking explain to Matthew McConaughey how wormholes work right before he's about to fly into the wormhole. Like, don't you think this is something they would have done in training? And I know, you know what I mean? Like, that's in the Interstellar movie, which could have easily been done any other point before they started flying. And I know I complain about all the exposition in the first half of the film, but since there's so much of it anyways, if they were going to do the Limbo thing, why introduce it when they've already started the mission? Like, randomly saying, like, oh, no, by the way, if you die, I know usually in dreams, when you die, you wake up, but by the way, this time, you just go into Limbo. It's like, don't you think this is something they should have told to them before they entered the dream? Like,
I sort of understand, like, Nolan wanted to surprise the audience.
Yeah, but
they
just sound
like a sudden scary
the characters sound stupid.
They do sound stupid.
It's and they're blasé about it too. No. You just go into Limbo. What the fuck is Limbo? Well, let's explain it for a bit. This is Limbo. Oh shit. Okay. Like, Cobb's been there. Of course, Cobb's been there. He's fucked up. You know, he's got issues. Of course, he's been there. Like,
it's very awkwardly done, and I mean, like if we were to rewind to Uganda, that whole segment, I know I can't stand it, but like they could have briefly talked about Limbo. Maybe not explain it entirely. Like leave the rest of the scary explanation for that one point. Yeah. But like introduce the idea. Where Youssef goes, by the way, there's one risk, and he goes, what's that risk? You know, a limbo. And they go, oh my god, maybe not that corny.
Yeah, but like subtle like that. Like they could.
And then you'd be like, people would be wondering, oh, what's Limbo? And you'd be thinking about it, and then when the idea is reintroduced, everyone's going to lean their seat. They're just like, oh yes, Limbo, oh my god, what is this? And then we hear like, oh my god, that sounds awful. But here it's like, oh, by the way, there's this thing about Limbo, and we're like,
where's this coming from?
Yeah, and they're like, oh, you're going to be stuck in here forever, and we're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's bad.
Added like risk that's just introduced randomly to add tension to this. Like you said, that would have been perfect. Like just a small thing. Like we got one risk, Limbo. Oh, okay. Like they all kind of understand until later, where Sato's like, "What the fuck is Limbo?" You know, because Sato doesn't know.
It's a fill in the blank conflict. It's like, what's their conflict? And like they had struggle thinking of it, and then there's like, oh yeah, that's the one.
They have enough conflict going on with Cobb invading the dreams, with the projections attacking him. Now let's add Limbo to this too. Like, let's just. What else is there? What else? Like,
and like I said with the Limbo, it introduces some very confusing universe rules that are very head scratching. I like to think that I understand this plot, and for the most part I do, but that's like one area where it's just like, why introduce this at all?
That's the thing. What else are they going to introduce? Like, oh, if you lose a limb in your dreams, you'll wake up without the limb too. Be careful.
Yeah, it would have been less contrived. Like, how would if you die in this, you die real life. Like the Tron rule, you know? They could have done the same thing here.
Okay, and this
it would have been much cleaner.
This was a point where I was talking about where like a character will recap everything that was said, because then Tom Hardy's character basically just takes what everyone says and repeats it into one little sentence, you know, where he's like, okay, so if I got this straight, if you die, you go to Limbo, and then we're stuck. Sounds good. It's like, why did you need this recap? We understood.
I like how Tom Hardy sounded like so kind of like pissed off when he was saying it. Like, I know he's pissed off as a character. He's just like, he doesn't know what he got into, but I also got the sense that like my own disgruntledness, the fact that this is being re-explained,
Yeah,
and the fact that again they don't know what to do with this Tom Hardy character.
Yeah, like
it seems like he's stuck here and doesn't want to be here.
Tom Hardy is trying his best here. Like,
he's doing his best.
Compared to most actors in this film who just are like, I don't give a shit. I'm just saying my lines. He's trying to add, like when he said that line, it's such a stupid recap line that was unnecessary. But you know, he tried to add some snarkiness to it, which is fine. So we'll give him some credit, I guess.
I give him all the credit. I just, oh boy, it's just like he's
got nothing to work with.
Right, so...
Oh, wait, no, there is another thing. Sato is dying. He got shot.
Yes.
I forgot about that. So, on top of the 3 issues, we also have Sato who's in the process of dying.
Like, we care.
No, I don't care. This is literally what I wrote. This is what I wrote in my notes. Sato dying. I'm like, cool, I don't give a shit. Let him fucking die. Like, he's so useless. He's just, like we said, he's a liability. And if he dies, it'll be better for the team. Like, because they're like, okay, we don't have to carry this fucking child with us everywhere.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about this mission period. Because, this is the whole situation. I'd be like, okay, screw this guy. Send him in limbo. I don't want to have anything to do with this. Let's just jump and get the fuck out of here. Throughout this whole midsection, I didn't understand why they didn't just wanted to, jump and get out of this mission. It was so dangerous.
Well, especially, like you said, there's, no motivation. The only person who has any sort of motivation is Cobb, because Sato will get him redeemed and get him back to his children. But, the rest of the team could have easily been like, well, the guy who hired us is fucking dead. Just leave him in limbo. Let's get the fuck out of here, and, we're good. No consequences to the failure of this mission. And we don't screw up Cillian Murphy's life. He seems like a cool guy. Let him be.
Yeah, exactly.
And then as Sato is dying, we get the fucking line again. Old man, filled with regret, dying alone. It's like, ay. They're only doing this so, at the last scene, that's how they recognize each other.
People be like, oh, I get it.
Fuck off with this stupid line.
They recognize each other with the spinny thing.
No, it was in a long forgotten dream.
But no, you have to have this silly, it's like a high Q sort of, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. Anyways,
but what's cool though, once again, Cillian Murphy's character, the only part of the movie I'm invested in, we get more into his relationship with his father, and
that's cool.
It's so great. The whole part where he's like, you know what my father said before he died? He just said disappointed. And you're like, man, that's the thing. The only character who has any sense of character you feel so horrible for, and then you realize he's fucked over by the end of this movie, and you're just like,
hugely,
my god.
And then it always cuts to the people that are fucking him over, and they're the ones we're supposed to be feeling sympathy for.
I'll say I started laughing when you said disappointed because I kept thinking about that famous Hercules.
Disappointed.
Yeah, disappointed. That would have been great if the dad was like, son. He's like, what? He just grabs it and is like, disappointed, and then just dies.
That'd be perfect. Oh gosh.
Okay, so this is the part of the film where I completely clocked out because the movie stops for 5 minutes to give us story time. Story fucking time. Because we need to understand Cobb's past. Because instead of doing it subtly throughout the whole film and letting the audience put the pieces together, we need Cobb to explain it to us in great detail, story time, what happened. At this point. And I zoned out. Don't ask me about this segment. I got on my phone and I zoned out because I was bored. I did not give a shit. And I know what happens because I've seen this movie before. I've seen it twice before, so I know what the story is. But this time around, I couldn't give two flying fucks about this fucking backstory.
I'm just wondering, why does it have to happen at this point? When he introduces this big dilemma, I want to see this dilemma solved, but it's let's just take a moment to explain some things, some things that are loosely related. And I'm like, okay, I'll go along with this. This won't be too long.
No, it's so
Cue
long.
fucking 5-minute flashback sequence.
Oh my!
Introducing Mel and introducing her death, and we're supposed to feel sorry about all this. And again, good idea. Poorly executed because it's very interesting, the idea that she lost
Yeah.
This idea between dream and reality because they stayed within the dream for too long. All that stuff is very cool, but it's all done with this melodramatic explanation. It's all done with Mehdia Consumers completely phoning it in. It's all done with like a very sort of like underdeveloped sort of relationship between the parents and the kids who are like, it's more important than the movie seems to let on. I mean, that's the whole point. Leo is a part of this, right? It's the children, and we see them in like a couple of frames in this whole flashback. I mean, there should have been like a conversation where she's like, what's happening to mommy? And I think she's a bit sick, and then stuff like that. Like, show an actual like part of Cobb that has some sort of sense of integrity, that has some sort of sense that he's assuming the sort of responsibility.
But that's the thing, he doesn't have a sense of integrity, this character. No. He's just a shit person the whole way through.
And we get to that suicide sequence, which I don't know. It could have been heartbreaking, but for me, it was just it was underperformed. Part of it is maybe Leo's performance, part of it maybe it's the direction, but oh my god, Leo's reaction. That would have been better.
If it was a bird, if he was doing
like a cry of mourning. That is like losing a bet, like at like a horse race or something. Like,
it's just like, and that's the thing. Like by this point, I couldn't give a shit. Like I'm so uninvested in his fucking story. Yeah. She killed herself fucking great. Like I don't like cool. Like it's.
And that was the point where like Leo's character was supposed to show some very profound emotion, and it is so forced. It's poorly performed, and it stops the film dead in its tracks. And of course, thankfully, the flashback ends, and of course, it's Leo talking to Ellen Page, and Ellen Page right away says, "Oh, you have this team over here. You can't let these bad memories come into play because now you have these lives that depend on things like that." And it's like, why weren't you talking about this earlier?
Right.
Like you're a smart woman. Why weren't you talking about this the second you were introduced to Mal? Yeah. Why weren't you talking about the second you knew that you're getting into this very important mission? Like even before you knew your life was at risk. How come you didn't actually firmly confront like Leo and Point?
But that's the thing. Like her confrontations are all half-assed, right? Like she's this is an important issue, and he's kind of like, I do, but like whatever. I'm Cobb, and she's like, okay.
And what I'm wondering is like, why is this like speech the one that finally convinces him? Because
no, she's not convincing at all.
She's slow because it sounds so minor. Again, right. Like I'm not going to hold that against Ellen Page. I hold that firmly against the direction they're writing.
It's and what pisses me off the most too is that it's just reiteration of what we already know. If they had done the whole thing in a way that was like subtly telling us, like we as an audience are slowly discovering what happened through visuals, and yeah, it's fine that he's telling the story to Ellen Page, but like we don't need to sit here listening to the story. Like he could start telling the story and we visually just see it.
Yeah. Or introduce this whole story could have been introduced like periodically in like little bits and pieces, like throughout the film, and instead we're given a huge chunk at a very inconvenient placing.
Right. Yeah, especially that's the part that makes me laugh is that, you know, they're constantly like how important the mission is, and like we're pressed for time. You got like fucking Sato dying in the corner, who's doomed to go into limbo. You got all these projections attacking them, and they're all like, "Oh shit, we got to do something now. We got to work fast." And Cobb's just like, "Oh yeah, we got to work fast, but give me 5 minutes, okay? I'm just gonna sit down and tell this story to Ellen Page over here." It's like, what the fuck? It doesn't make sense.
Well, I partly understand because Ellen Page realizes we have no room to fuck up. We need to get this Mal situation more or less under control. But at the same time, like why is he only explaining this now?
No, but it's not just that. Like, I understand she wants to get the Mal situation under control, and they could do it with a sense of urgency, but they don't do it with a sense of urgency. It's not like, you got to tell me right now what's happening, and he kind of, like, tells her very quickly, and, like, there's this, like, this sense of, like, panic going between them as he tries to explain the story, and we're trying to figure out now. But no, it's a very casual, like, story time. Like, I'm talking to my friend, hey, what happened with you? Oh, if you have time, let's have a coffee, a tea, I'll sit down and let's tell the story. Do you want a cake, a piece of cake? Oh, here's a piece of, okay, okay, here's the story. And it's like, this is not the moment for this.
Yeah, it's a kind of like earnest but very slight kind of reassurance you give a friend who's in a difficult situation. Well, look at things in bigger perspective. I mean, there are other people in your life, blah, blah, blah. Anyways,
No, there's a bigger sense of urgency right now that we have to deal with. Let's take care of this as quickly as possible. Like, it's fuck.
So speaking of urgency, so that flashback thankfully ends. That forced
the flashback. I was so clocked out of that when it finally ended. I didn't even realize it ended. I'm like, oh shit, yeah, the rest of the movie. This is the point where my notes start to become less and less because I'm just losing interest completely. Like, which is weird because this is the more interesting part of the film, but the first half of the fucking film completely knocked me out. So fuck you, first half of the film.
Yeah, so finally, like they reach a second level, right?
Yeah, they bring him into the van. Yusuf is driving. They sleep, and now they're in the hotel.
Even though it's a smaller scale, like I have to say, this dream is 1,000 times more interesting.
Yeah.
Like because there's actual character content.
Yeah.
And basically at this point, they're becoming a bit more forthcoming with Cillian Murphy about the fact that this is a dream, but they're being very careful about it, which is kind of sketchy in the first place. And you're like, oh, this is kind of interesting.
Mr. Charles tactic.
Yeah, and Leo's doing reverse psychology again. Like, what a shitbag, but it's actually kind of interesting. Like,
yeah, like that's the thing. Like this whole the whole idea behind his tactic is actually really really cool. And this is one of the few times where I feel like interesting concept that they kind of did execute pretty well, and it's very good. I'll give them credit for this part where they came up with a really good tactic to fix the problem of all the projections attacking them.
Again, this is actual cleverness.
Yeah. Although, once again, like, when Cobb is trying to, like, make Cillian Murphy realize he's in a dream kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Why does Cobb have to be like, weird weather we're having outside? Oh, did you notice this? Look at that over there. It's kind of like, let him notice it himself. Like, once again, like, subtlety is your friend here.
Yeah.
Okay, look, the weird weather, like, fuck you.
I guess that's just this Cobb's, like, hot-headedness and,
and tiny nitpick, but what the fuck's up with Joseph Gordon-Levitt being like, quick, kiss me? And, like, they share this, like, quick little kiss, and he's like, oh, I thought it would work, and he walks to go away, and she has, like, this little smile on her face, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you guys did not flesh out these characters enough for this to be, like, deserving of a moment. This is just a weird, awkward, and slightly creepy moment, like...
It is... Post-Me Too, that's not a very cool scene. I mean, it's kind of... When should we have been under the impression that Joseph Gordon-Levitt wanted to fuck Ellen Page?
Or the other way around, too, because when he leaves, she smiles. She does this little, like, smirk. And it's like, when did this love romance happen? I didn't realize they even had chemistry together. Like, quick, stick your tongue down my mouth. Quick, let's just have a quick session of sex right here. No one's going to notice.
If you start kissing in an office building, in real life, people will notice you. People are like, huh?
To be fair, it was like a peck. It wasn't like an intense, like, kiss,
I know. But it is strange that there are, like, seeming business professionals in suits, like, doing this pretty long peck.
And especially if people are, like, looking at these two before they kiss and they keep looking, they'd be like, where the fuck did this kiss come from? Because they're kind of, like, looking around. It's like, quick, kiss me. Like, what the fuck?
That would cause some serious stares.
Like, how conservative is this couple here? That scene, even when I first saw it, I was like, what the fuck? Like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, it was an awkward laughter in the theater.
They kissed.
So they're still trying to, get the numbers out of Cillian Murphy, and
they bring him, they give him the numbers. They go to the hotel room. Oh yeah, Sato has that moment in the elevator with Eames, which is really fucking stupid.
Wait, what?
Yeah, where he, like, Eames is disguised as, like, a sexy girl, and he walks in, and Sato's
and he does, like, a little kiss. And it's like, why is everyone having fun at this moment? That's
wait. Sato has that interaction with Fat Businessman. Oh, you're still in the disguise. Oh, so good. And the guy's like, what? And then he sees Eames in the background. Like, no. He's like, oh, sorry, wrong person. I thought you were my friend. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm sorry, movie. You can't give Sato a weird comedic scene out of nowhere.
That's what's so weird, because, like, I think the comedy, like, isolated is kind of funny, but, like, why at this point?
And everyone realizes their lives are in danger? It's the wrong character. He's, like, this super serious businessman the whole movie, and suddenly he's like, oh, nice disguise. It's like, what the fuck?
Like he would never say that.
No.
Like, from what I understand for this character, he would never go, oh, nice disguise. Very good.
So well done.
Why so complimentary all of a sudden? Jeez.
Oh, you're so good. You're still in disguise, and we don't even need you right now. Oh, method acting. Yeah, so I don't know. Sato has these weird comedic moments. He dumps a wallet into a garbage chute. It's like at this point, I feel like they just want Sato to do something.
While he's like, bleeding his like guts out.
Like they just needed to give the character something in the hotel because they could have easily had Eames just go like discard the wallet. Well, why?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, why even have that? Like we don't even need to see that.
Yeah, it's because like if you're bleeding out, I mean, I don't understand the rules of this dream universe. I mean, I like if I'm in a dream, I'd probably think about not bleeding, and maybe I'd stop. But I guess they can't do that here. So if he's in immediate danger, why are you making him move around? Don't you want to like sit down so you make sure that
it's the idea of just walk it off.
just
walk it off. You'll be fine.
Walk out this bullet wound to your like fucking liver, like.
And I take back what I said before. The wallet was actually important because Eames opens it up and finds the picture.
Right.
Of the son dad. So that's kind of, and now we also get to a complicated place where they're being put to sleep to go into the third dream, and now we're just bouncing around everywhere. We're cutting back to the car driving around with all of them sleeping, where we get the really cool like car flip thing that happens.
This is where it gets fun.
Oh yeah, the car flip thing happens, and like Joseph Gordon-Levitt like fights the guy as the set's rotating. A highlight of the film, I must say so myself. Really well done, really cool. So kudos to them. And he has like his little comedic moment of like, oh, did everyone see that? And now they're starting the whole idea of the kick, right? And they're like, oh shit, the kick's starting early. What are we gonna do?
Actual tension, kind of.
I think this is probably one of the better parts of the film, where
the best part.
Yeah, where
like
they're jumping back. Yeah, they're jumping back from each thing, but the tension is there. You're actually feeling like a shit ton of tension, except the one part where he like fights the guy in the staircase, and he fucking has to say the word paradox out loud. It's like, yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you. Another, like the audience didn't understand it from the stair paradox explanation earlier in the film. You had to scream out the word paradox. Like, who are you screaming this word to? To the fucking projection? Like, paradox. It's like, this is his final, like, quip before he kills someone.
Oh, it was just this Arnold moment, you know, like I'll stick around.
Yeah, it's stick around. Paradox. It's stupid. But yeah, like we actually feel tension bouncing around. You know, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's now floating in the air, and he's like, "How I'm gonna make them kick with no gravity?" You know, it's like so we're finally. I don't know how far. I think we're like an hour and 40 minutes into the film, and I'm finally invested in something. Yes. I don't care about the characters, but I'm invested in the film. Finally, an hour and 40 minutes into it.
And I want to see the outcome.
Right.
And the outcome is not terribly interesting.
No, it's a little like, okay, that happened. But the build-up, the tension is done so well.
Yes, it is.
Best part of the movie. But they build up this tension, and you're like, oh my god, are they gonna do it? And then fucking Maul appears, he shoots her, the guy's dead, tension gone. The tension stops because they walk in and like Eames in a very joking way is like, okay, so we failed. Whoops. You know, like he's dead, we failed. It's like, okay, I guess what are we gonna do now? It's like, what are you doing? You were building up all this tension and you were invested, and then you just stop it dead to like have this weirdly comedic moment in like the most inappropriate place.
With a very inappropriate character. Weirdly random comedic moment with the antagonist who's supposed to be menacing, and she just comes in a point of very strange comic timing, and it's like, what?
So what's she doing here? Pow, let's shoot her. Oh, I guess we failed. He's dead. No, we could go to limbo. Oh, let's do that. And it's like, so when the tension starts again, when all the kicks are starting, it's kind of like you were building it up so well, only to cut the tension for this, and now you're restarting the tension. Like, imagine how amazing it would have been, like, this orgasm of a climax when they all wake up at the end, if they did not break up that tension in the middle.
I completely agree. That whole, because I blame the ski segment. I blame the ski segment in terms of like the blandness of that dream, in terms of how long it is, and in terms of, like you say, the film just it hits the brakes. It hits the brakes right there, so they can establish the setting and can establish exactly where they're going. It should have been a setting probably much more like small. It should have been a setting with a much more clear, direct goal. But instead, it's like a beginning of almost like a different movie. I'm like, why is this one of the higher levels of the dream?
Yeah, and in fairness, like Inception better than what happened in Interstellar, because at least when they cut the tension, it's not like a few seconds or a few minutes. They have a whole segment where they go to the limbo where he confronts Maul, which is a fucking stupid scene, and I hate it. And all that. At least it's like a completely new segment, and then they bring the tension back. Yeah. It's not like an Interstellar where I'm thinking of the scene where he
where he goes into Magic Land.
He basically he ejects from the spaceship, goes into the black hole, and we're in his headspace. And I'm like, holy shit, this movie's actually doing something like really great. Like you're in his headspace. It said, and then it cuts back to fucking Topher Grace, like in a fucking cornfield, and you're like, tension gone. That's it. Like you ruined it. And then when you cut back to Matthew McConaughey, you're like, I don't care anymore. You broke the fucking tension. It's not tense anymore. Like you had to show me fucking Topher Grace in a cornfield, being like, come on.
You know, a lot of people say that's the low point of the film, and I completely disagree. I mean, a lot of people say, the film just sort of descends into magic realism and completely loses touch. I'm like, no, that's like when Nolan, like, lets off the brakes, it can get really interesting. Like at that point where, the imagination is just flying off the roof and where there's actual, like, emotional core. And that's sort of what they're getting with this final dream layer.
When they're in the limbo, I wrote this down. Like Ariadne is all like, "You built this? Incredible!" And it's like, it's not the time to be sightseeing right now. This happens throughout the entire movie, that they're so pressed for this mission, but they always stop, like, for something completely unimportant, like, oh, wow, let's, it's incredible, the stuff you made. It's like, what the fuck happened to the mission? Like, you guys keep doing this.
Like, what further are you saying about Cobb and Mal that you already haven't said before? Well, this is an interesting landscape, but what fundamentally does it say? Not really that much.
No.
I mean, it's not a very poignant moment. I'm sure Nolan said, this is going to be a beautiful dream sequence, and this is going to be a real look into his subconscious, and this is going to reveal, like, where all his heartstrings are, and we're finally getting the heart of the matter. I'm like, we've seen the heart of the matter prior. This is just kind of, I mean, it looks different, but on a dramatic scale, you're just recycling.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, this whole scene, which is supposed to be, like, the big confrontation with his inner demons, is my least favorite scene. I think it's the worst fucking scene in the entire movie, and we're plagued with just scenes of exposition. This scene is worse than that, because now it's like, I'm sorry, you guys had no character the whole film, and now you're trying to do something with it, and the lines he's given are so stupid. Like, when he's looking at her, like they're having this moment of, oh, you should have joined me, you should come with me, and he's all like, no, you are not for me, you are not my wife, you're all your complexities and your perfections and your imperfections, and all I wrote in my notes is, like, what the fuck are you babbling on about? Like, this is not a confrontation. This is like...
Just like, oh, honey, we gotta... It's like explain to your alcoholic wife she has a problem, and it's like a very kind of, like, wishy-washy confrontation. I'm like, no, you need to ditch this bitch, dude.
It's the weakest confrontation of someone's inner demons I've ever fucking seen in my life. And it's so weird because there's a moment in the scene where he's all like, oh my god, my wife, and he's still plagued by it, and then just randomly he's like, no, you know what, fuck this, like, this is all bullshit. And it's not even like something he just realizes in the moment. The way he reacts to it, it's kind of like he's had this opinion his whole life, like, like, oh no, you're not, like, that's how he reacts with it. So when he reacts in that way, you're just like, oh, what? It just feels so out of place and just terrible. What's going on?
I think what was supposed to be going on is that he no longer felt guilt. And because he no longer felt guilt, he no longer felt an obligation to keep her in his mind. But where exactly is the point where he was no longer guilty? Like, what made him realize it? I guess it was the stupid conversation he had with Ellen Page. But how did that carry out here? I didn't see that.
But that's exactly what I was saying, because the beginning part of this confrontation is him still feeling that guilt and being like, I love my wife and I'm so sorry, and it's just random that he's like, no, like, you're not the wife for me.
Over it.
Fuck you, like, I'm not dealing with this bullshit anymore. It's like, where did this come from? It's so out of nowhere.
And it's interspliced with a whole bunch of, like, visually these movies pretty decent. These wind effects in the scene look like something out of, I don't know.
It's
ridiculous.
because they're in limbo, that's why.
And it's because it's in limbo, but everything is bad CGI. Ellen Page falling out, that looks terrible.
Oh, fuck.
I mean, I don't even remember that.
No, I especially love, she's like, come on, we gotta go. Cobb, not even like, he's delivering this in the most wooden way. Like, Leo, it's his most wooden line delivery in the entire film. He's just like, no, Sato is still down here. I gotta find it. He's like staring into like, I think he's still looking at Maul. I don't know what. He's staring into the abyss. Like, he's dead behind the eyes at this point in the film. Leo is, not the character. Like, the actor himself. He's just done. And he's just like, Sato's still here. I gotta go find him. And she's like, okay, fuck this. And she, like, runs off. Like, this is such a messy scene. It's so bad. It's so sloppy.
He's supposed to feel, like, I suppose, relief. Like finding that's off my shoulder, but instead he just looks like when you're trying to fake interest in a lecture, and he's kind of like,
Like I said, he's dead behind the eyes in this scene.
He has a dead soul.
But what's great though is that we're immediately contrasted with one of the best scenes in the film, Cillian Murphy meeting his dad in the hospital, which is phenomenal. Like this, it's like, why couldn't the confrontation be like that? What?
By the way, two excellent actors, R.I.P. Oh god, what's the guy's name? Pete Postlethwaite.
Oh yeah, Postlethwaite. Yes.
Yes, this is one of his last roles. He died in 2011.
Yeah. His last role was in Killing Bono.
Yeah, and Keith Postlethwaite. I mean, like, he's strapped to a bed this whole film, but he delivers much more emotional performance than almost anybody, maybe with the exception of Cillian Murphy. Yeah, and the whole conversation feels very real, and it's very heart-tugging, and I'm just like stuck in this hodgepodge
of like what's good. And that's the thing, when he opens a safe and pulls out the little like paper windmill thing and he starts tearing up, like I'm like, oh my god, like this is so good. I'm engaged, I'm feeling emotional. Like your movie that I'm uninvested in is actually creating feelings inside me, and it's so sad as a scene. It's so weird because you know for a fact that the writers put so much time into writing that confrontation between Cobb and Maul, and they probably couldn't give two fucking shits about this one because they're literally like, okay, this is the Inception scene, just fucking write it so it's done. And it's so weird how like that came out being amazing, and the fucking scene between Cobb and Maul, we're like, guys, this is the climactic scene where he confronts her and gets over it. It's so bad.
Yeah, it's so hokey in comparison. I think what they probably had in mind is that we're gonna have the Cobb and Maul scene probably go parallel to a scene between Cillian Murphy and Pete Postlethwaite, because the scene between Cillian Murphy and Pete Postlethwaite is probably going to be a little less impactful. We need to have it parallel so people can associate the emotion from one scene to the next. But instead, it was like the reverse effect because this father-son relationship is so much more interesting.
You know what, Cillian Murphy, A+ for this film.
Yes.
If there's any redeeming factor for this film, it's Cillian Murphy and all his parts, all his scenes. That's the only reason I'd ever watch this movie again. If I could have a cut of this movie of just his scenes, I'd be happy.
It wouldn't be so bad.
And it'd be so much shorter. It wouldn't be like too...
It'd be a short film.
It'd
be a cool short film about maybe a little businessman whose dreams are being manipulative, and it could take place for 20 minutes.
This movie did not need to be this long. It did not.
No, it really didn't. And again, like, I'll say that if it took the perspective from Ellen Page, it would have been like a decent 90 minutes, cool little cyberpunk thing. And it would have been so much more concise. It would have been so much more cool and with so much less fat. 1,000 times more interesting, but whatever. So this movie's almost over.
Yeah, thank God.
Cillian Murphy reaches. Yeah,
I was looking at, like, by the time this came around, I'm like, great. Like, we're at the end of the movie. I can, go for a walk or something. I can do anything that will make me feel.
Yeah.
That would just make me feel. And we're met with another highlight of the film, the kick, like all of them waking up at the same time. Really cool.
Well timed.
Final little Cillian Murphy scene with the fat businessman. His
Talking
weakest scene, but whatever. Yeah,
it's kind of like we already got the idea of Cillian Murphy, and he's going to explain it to us because Nolan thinks we're idiots.
Yeah.
But
I think it's more
Cillian
just
Murphy,
like we're gonna have Cillian Murphy say it, just so it's like, okay, they succeeded.
Yeah, and Cillian Murphy delivers it pretty sincerely.
Yeah. So.
And
fuck, Cillian. You know what, Cillian Murphy, you're the best. I love you, Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, me too. We love you. I'll cut out that smushy noise, don't worry. So, we're back on the plane.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, no, wait. Cobb. That now we're back to the first scene of the film.
Oh, yes. Oh, God.
I was fucking dreading this scene. It's not as bad as the mall cop scene.
The mall cop, yeah.
Paul Blart Mall Cop just randomly appears in the scene on his fucking Segway.
Oh yeah, I would welcome him at any point.
Paul Blart stuck in limbo with that.
I can't get these robbers on my little scooter. He's like freshly getting old as he's going after these robbers. I'm gonna go.
Oh, Jesus. Terrible. That's also a terrible movie, but whatever. So, sorry. I need a second. Mm-hmm. So we're back to this scene. I was dreading, like, before watching the movie, this is the scene I was dreading the most. Because we got fucking old man Sato again with the stupid lines. An old man dying alone. With regret. Oh, fuck. Like.
Yeah, beautiful. And it saying it 3 times over makes it all the more potent.
It's the rule of threes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This fucking thing, okay, we say we needed it because we need to save Sato, even though no one gives a shit about. Like, at this point, I don't give a shit about these characters. Like, I don't care that he saved. Like, just why fucking leave him?
Like, what do these characters have left to say to each other is what I'm wondering.
That they're old
Not
men
much.
with regrets. Dying alone.
I guess so. What does he regret exactly? I guess participating in this at all. And
like, why did I do this? I just died. Why did I agree to go into Dream just to die?
They're not really similar regrets.
Oh, you know what? I'll go back to, like, the whole Inception thing that Cobb did with his wife. Because he planted the idea that she wasn't living, like, he planted the idea that the world she's living in isn't real, right?
Right.
That's what he did, so that when they woke up, she still believed that. And all I'm thinking is this is the stupidest fucking idea that you could incept into someone's mind. Like, if he was trying out the idea of Inception, why would he try with this idea? Why couldn't it be something completely different? Like, oh, I don't know, I'll make my wife like giving blowjobs, you know? Like...
like she had mental illness issues, I think, beforehand. He wanted to make things.
Oh, did she?
I think so. That's why he did the whole stream thing. He wanted her to be happy.
Wow, that's something that's completely glossed over and not explained at all.
I assume that's the impression. He's like, so I'm make her happy. I'm gonna make her believe that everything's a dream and wonderful. And I mean, that's the only way. That's the only reason I can.
Okay, well then why not incept an idea like you find joy in literally everything? Why does it have to be you think life is not real? Like, what a stupid fucking thing to implant into someone. Like, you really thought that was gonna end well? Like, obviously that was gonna cause problems. Like, this is so stupid. Like, Cobb's an idiot and he's a humongous fucking prick and he deserves every bad thing that happens to him in this movie.
But very little bad happens to him by the end of it, because you know what? He gets precisely what he wants.
Oh yeah, there's this great moment which made me laugh when they wake up in the plane and he gives Sato a look and Sato's like sitting there looking at him and like pulls out the phone and beep 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 beep. Hello, like a fucking who was he calling at that moment?
I assumed he was calling like whoever to sort of get Cobb his airplane to visit his little kitties or something like that.
Well, I mean,
I assume that's what I meant, but
he must have made a phone call to someone to get Cobb's get him like a clean slate, right? Because
That's
Cobb
yes.
has that moment, one of those rare moments of Cobb's subtlety where, he's giving his passport to the guy and he's a little nervous because he might not pass through. And who did Sato call to let that be okay?
I have connections.
To who? To the fucking president? Like, it's like, what fucking connection is he calling that this, like, because they're waking up and it was a 10-hour flight, so that means when they woke up, they're basically landing. Like, that shouldn't have been that quick.
No, it was Trump paid a visit to Japanese Yakuza. They got him some Japanese call girls. They filmed some pretty embarrassing things, and then afterwards, like Sato's like, "Oh, you have this video? You're doing some bad things with sushi, so you better let him through."
Yeah, like that's gonna like that video is gonna stop Trump with like all the stupid shit we already have of him that he publicly does anyways.
Again, this is 6 years before Trump presidency, but this is a science fiction film, so who the fuck knows what year it's based in? So that'd be my explanation.
Morgan Freeman was probably president at that time.
Yeah. Oh my, if only.
Yeah, so I don't know. He's fucking calling at this point. It's like, let him free, and then like hangs up. it's like, okay.
By the way, we love Japanese people. We're gonna so much hate in the comments over the whole.
Whatever.
Give me a break.
Sorry.
Like, Japanese people can make fun of our like Western Anglo pronunciations. It's all good.
Yeah, go ahead. Make fun of my accent. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. We all love each other.
So, and then we see Michael Caine again, and I just get the impression Michael Caine's like, okay, let's just get the shot over with. Come. Okay, I'm happy. Bye.
Again, when he's there, I just think Michael Caine. I don't think him as being this father figure. Again, like I'm reiterating myself, but...
Well, how could you see him as his father figure when we literally see him talking in one fucking scene? And now we get to the moment... The famous moment that stuck with everyone, and I think is one of 2 moments in the entire film that had everyone going like, oh my god, what the fuck? It is the fucking cut when the top is spinning. I remember, well, no, actually, when I saw it in theaters, it was an empty theater because I saw it pretty late, but...
Oh, cool.
Funny story, I used to work at Cinema Guzzo, and Drake... The real Drake came to watch a movie,
shit.
And he came with his posse to watch Inception. So he came to see Inception, and I was working at the theater at the time, and at the end of the movie, I walk in, getting ready to, like, we had to, like, make sure he was fine, I guess, and, like, clean the fucking hall after they left, even though there weren't that many people. Carpet. But I just remember the minute, like, that top is spinning, it cut... All of them were just like, oh, no, what the fuck? Oh, Jesus. It's so stupid. Like, why are people reacting? It's so inconsequential to the rest of the fucking movie.
Again, like, go back to, like, the theory about is this a dream or is it not? Like, what does this mean? Like, if it is or not. Like, what does this say about the rest of the plot? It says nothing, so it's like...
And then if we're gonna go with what Christopher Nolan says, it's like, it doesn't matter because Cobb accepts this as his reality, so whether it's a dream or not, who gives a shit? And by the way, it's not a dream because the top faltered.
It's tumbling.
It's tumbling. It's showed that in a dream it stays perfect. It falters. It's tumbling. It's his reality. He's in real life. That's it. That's done. I don't understand how 5 seconds of a film can get people going so crazy. And that's why I think everyone's like, man, I was mind blown by this film. Because the last fucking thing of the film was this getting cut and they don't know if this fucking top fell over. And they're just like, oh my god. Oh, my perception of this movie has completely changed. Holy shit, what is life? Do I even know what reality is anymore?
Those sound like Drake lyrics, so... I'm pretty sure like people like Drake, they're just like fucking, they get so stoned before this film, like the rest of they probably don't understand. It's like as they're sobering up, as this long ass movie is continuing, they see this little singer at the end and they pick it up as being something significant to the story. So when they cuss, they go, oh my god, that's so clever, it probably means something because I can't understand fuck all.
But that's the funniest part of the thing, the whole film and the whole phenomenon that is the Inception movie, is that as an audience member, that's what you're left with. This final moment
that
impression. Leaves you going like, oh my god! That you leave the movie feeling that feeling of like, holy shit, what does it all mean? That you completely forget about the first half of this movie being so fucking boring. Like, and awful.
It's a cheap stinger.
Yeah.
That means ultimately nothing. And I gotta tell you, I saw this at with an audience over in Kirkland, Quebec. Little suburb in the west end of Montreal, for those listeners who don't know. And when that happened, honestly, they get the perfect reaction. It was just a bunch of people going, yeah. Like, they're just like, yeah, I see what you're doing. Okay, time to go home.
So you had a very intelligent audience.
I think so, because it was just like people saying, okay, cute.
Yeah, because that's the thing, like, there's so many people, like, that's literally what it is. The phenomenon of Inception hinges on that, like, final second of the movie, because that's what people were left with, and that's all people fucking talked about afterwards. Because I don't see anybody talking about anything else in the film, other than, like, the cool action sequences and the kicks. I don't see anyone talking about anything else except that fucking top thing at the end.
A theory that amounts to nothing.
And it's if this is the only thing people were left with from the movie, I'm sorry to say, this is not a good movie.
The ending scene is often, the cherry on top. It can make or break a film. In the case of Munich, completely broke that film. Otherwise competent movie, completely broken by a weird-ass sex scene at the end. And in this film, obviously, we had many issues throughout, but the fact that, you end with something so, like, non sequitur, just sort of is indicative that, you had no proper conclusion. If you have no proper conclusion, then you have no satisfying resolution. Your film was left moot and unsatisfying. I'm sorry, Nolan.
And then that's the thing, like, Nolan comes at us saying, like, oh, it doesn't matter. Cobb accepts this as his reality. Then why fucking do that cut? Why do that? Like, obviously, you wanted people to leave feeling this way, especially since his film Memento had, like, a huge, like...
Better movie, by the way. A way better movie.
Oh, yeah, way better movie. Way more deserving of, like, fan theories and stuff. But, yeah, that's the thing. Like, Memento had a huge, like, fan theory about... is Joe Pantoliano actually, like, the bad guy and this and that? Like, what's actually going on? And it made more sense in that movie because it actually was the movie, while this is, like, it's a fucking, like, ending sequence that literally has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. I mean, it kind of does have to do with the rest of the movie because he's paranoid about being in a dream and he fucking spins his top constantly throughout the dream, but it's like, who cares?
and like Memento, like, the theory about, oh my god, whether or not, like, his memory loss is legit or not, whether or not it's forced, is pertinent to his character.
Exactly.
It's pertinent to his character in a way that's also pertinent to the conflict of the film.
That's the thing,
honestly.
Like, if he was in a dream or not, like, what does that change for the rest of the film?
Zero.
Does nothing. Like, okay, he was in a dream. Okay, the film's still the same. He's not a dream. The film is still the same. Like, it literally doesn't matter.
This movie's over.
This
done. Movie's over. And,
finally.
This is a movie that had universal critical acclaim as well as universal positive audience reception.
Hey, it got nominated for Best Picture when it came out. The year it came out.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's even in the 1001 movies you must see before you die list.
That's I wouldn't doubt that. I know it's also like number 15 on IMDb. Let me verify this. Number 14. Oh, it rose. Fuck.
Look, that's the thing. Like I've said it before. Like, I know we've angrily torn this movie apart, but I don't think it's a bad movie. I just don't think it's a masterpiece. It's definitely not mind-blowing because I still to this day don't know what people mean by this film is mind-blowing. I have yet to understand what exactly do people find mind-blowing about this film. Is it all the dream theory stuff? Like, okay, anyone who can pick up a textbook can read this and find out for themselves. It's not mind-blowing. It's interesting, but it's not mind-blowing.
Yes. It's mind-boggling at points. I mean, I guess people think it's a pretty cool concept, but, something I want to say right from the beginning is that this is an original concept. Right. I mean, no, it's a real screenplay without a stated source material. But get this, somebody pointed out online, I think shortly after this film was released, that this had a very strange, like, resemblance to a particular issue, I think, of a DuckTales comic book.
A DuckTales of all things.
I kid you not. No, listen, this DuckTales comic book, it's about the bad dude, I forgot what the fuck his name is, coming out with the device to intercept the dreams of certain characters, and you could say, okay, well, that's anybody could really come up with that, but no, it is bad guys.
Okay.
Are trying to intercept the DuckTale uncle. I forgot his name. Scrooge McGee?
Yeah, Scrooge McDuck.
Scrooge McDuck, excuse me. To get his money. So to get his money, they come up with a dream machine so they can get inside his head and figure out the code.
For his safe.
So there you go. There's the plot of this movie right there.
That is the plot of Inception. I mean, because I was skeptical at first. I'm like, okay, well, again, like anyone can come up with an idea of getting into a dream, right?
Yeah.
And maybe to even get a certain idea or come up with a certain purpose. But purposely as a bank heist, I mean, that's awfully specific.
Yeah.
Where'd you get it? And I mean, plagiarism is a very, very tough allegation. But this to me is very intriguing.
Yeah.
Like,
it's hard to tell.
I really have to call him out.
If it's one of those situations where two separate people kind of came up with very similar ideas, or if Jonathan Nolan actually saw or read this comic of Scrooge McDuck and was like, I'm turning this into a Christopher Nolan film starring Leonardo DiCaprio as the leading man.
It's something I don't want to say I can't excuse because I don't even know if it was intentional in the first place, but I look at this comic and it's a light children's comic that I'm sure is fine and in its own right, but if people didn't praise this as being brilliant, then why are they praising something like Inception as being brilliant?
I don't understand it. And like I said, when you ask people what makes it mind-blowing, they get defensive. They don't give you an answer as to why it's mind-blowing. They get defensive, like, oh, you don't think it's mind-blowing? Well, your opinion is just invalid. And I'm not making that up. Somebody actually told me that. They were like, well, I just don't understand your opinion, so I'm not listening. It's like, like, how about, coming up with your own argument and trying to convince me why it's because I still don't get it. I watched the film today, and I don't understand what's mind-blowing about this film. If somebody, actually, I'm going to shout, if somebody out there can please explain to me why this film is mind-blowing, I would love to understand why.
Yeah. Better yet, maybe address our certain points.
Yeah.
So yeah, please, tell us why we're wrong, or why you think we're wrong, rather. I want to hear it. I don't mean that in a threatening way. Like, I really want to have a discussion. I want to be among the people who think that this should be like the 14th best film of all time.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. I have yet to see anyone explain to me why this film is actually good, because most people who I've met who have my opinion, we're able to have a whole discussion about it, but I've never had a discussion with people who love it, and there's tons, the majority of people out there love this film, and yet they have yet to give me any reasons as to why. And here's the thing, there's a big difference between, I just love this film because I like it, which we have a lot of films where we just like and we don't really have reasons for, and that's totally cool. But if you're gonna say this is a good movie, at least give me reason, what makes it good, because like I said, I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's just a decent movie. There is a lot of good stuff in it, but overall, what to you would make this a perfect 10 movie? What is it about it that makes it a perfect 10 movie? I want to know.
This beginning of our cast, we were sort of saying, this is going to be a lot of little nitpicky details, but I think we kept on reiterating some of the same points.
Yeah.
And it's a very repetitive film. And
like this podcast.
It's a very shallow film, and those are and it's a very, I think, poorly developed film on a character level, and those are pretty fundamental flaws.
Remember,
if you can tell us
famous tagline: interesting concepts, poorly executed.
Poorly executed. If you can tell some fundamental good aspects of the movie that perhaps outweigh those fundamental flaws that we think exist, that'd be pretty cool to share.
Yeah, it would have been great to have someone on here with us who's a huge fan of the film, trying to
future cast, who knows? Also, by the way, before we close, I want to mention one thing.
Yeah.
What kind of a name is Mal?
Is it French? Mal.
It's
Say
French.
mal. Oh, yeah, mal, because mal means hurt.
Mal means no, because that's the thing. Because I look at American critics, and there's one really hilarious review for this film by Entertainment Weekly, where they said, there's so many layers. This film is so deep. In fact, look at the name of the villain. You know what it means? It's French for evil.
I'm not sure about evil exactly, but mal is hurt.
Mal is hurt. Mal is like,
Je me fais mal. I hurt myself.
je fais mal aux jambes, like I hurt my leg. Like it means hurt. So
which makes sense because cob is hurt. It's not really a deep meaning. It's very on the nose if you think about it.
I guess so, but it's like on the nose. And like in this universe, you want me to believe that somebody gave birth to a little girl and said, oh, she's beautiful, we're gonna name her Hurt. Like,
no, it's in French. Mal.
No,
on va nommer Mal. Maybe it's short for something. Like maybe it's short for Mallory.
That's probably what it is.
But I mean, they don't fucking say it in the film, so I could just assume. But
because mal also means kind of like bad in French, right? If I'm not mistaken. And so,
like we said, it's very on the nose. There's nothing deep about it.
Exactly. This movie is on the nose, nothing deep. It has a lot of entertaining points.
Yeah, you know, for a movie where they go so deep into the subconscious, it's not very deep as a film.
Not at all.
That's the irony of the movie.
Here's a good question. Can we name it a better film that utilizes similar ideas?
Well, I named Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yes, I named that too. And I would also name, although it's not an action film, I'd probably name Being John Malkovich. Cause, that climax of the movie where they actually go through a subconscious.
Yeah.
It's like, it's 1,000 times more interesting and exciting.
Yeah,
like
it's such an absurd, deliciously absurd film. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that scene where John Malkovich goes into his own mind and it's just a world of John Malkoviches.
Yes.
Oh, fucking great. So good.
So dreams can be pretty interesting. Yeah. This movie, I don't know.
Off the top of my head, I can't really think of any other like dream memory subconscious.
Vanilla Sky, which I don't think is the best film. I don't know. I'd probably maybe put it at the same level. You know, it's a good question to ask, I think, because, again, you have to give Nolan credit. I mean, this isn't a typical blockbuster. We were pretty thankful, in a weird way, although we're not impressed with the film, although I probably wouldn't personally recommend it. I mean, that doesn't matter. You've seen it anyways, audience. So,
yeah, everyone's seen this film. But you know what? Like, even then, if somebody hasn't seen it, the only reason I would recommend it is because since it's such a massively loved film... and not liking it is the unpopular opinion, there's a very good chance that someone who hasn't seen it might like it.
Exactly.
So,
and there's a very good chance that we're not going to be alone in somebody else not liking it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know like lots of people who have shared the same opinion as us. So.
Oh boy. So, I got 4 hours on this Skype call.
Oh, that's fun.
So, yeah, audience members, we're going to cut down on this, obviously, but we spent 4 hours pretty much talking about Inception.
I didn't think it was possible.
Dang, who the fuck knows what?
And also, this is our first podcast. Obviously, we're a little rough around the edges, so any constructive feedback of how we can improve. Maybe we're too repetitive. Maybe I shout too loudly. I don't know, like.
Maybe I don't take notes. That's probably the one that everyone would be pointing out, like, well, Graham seems to be.
And I'm sorry, but saying our opinion is shit, or you disagree with our opinion, is not constructive feedback.
Nah, I'll still welcome it. Makes me nostalgic for old YouTube, when everything was just people calling each other fags.
Oh, yeah.
I miss those days.
Fun days. They still do it. If you go on any YouTube comment section, it's still plastered with idiots.
Yeah, of course, but I mean, they're a bit more, I don't know, less ardent.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I feel like we vocalized like our opinions well enough, and
I think so.
I don't think we came up with stupid opinion. Like, we said something we didn't like, and we were able to back up why we didn't.
Yes, particularly you correcting me. I mean, I'm gonna be the whipping boy. It's all good. I take. Yeah, if you have anything bad to say, don't say about my friend Jonathan. Say about me, please.
Yeah. Please attack Graham, because he's more fragile than I am, and it's funnier when a fragile person is beaten down to the ground.
It's okay. I'm not fragile. I'm already broken, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, there you go. So you can't break him more. It's impossible.
So, what do we want to talk about next? By the way, listeners, we haven't really decided this, so this is actually a legit question for John.
Yeah, this was, we kind of just did Inception because we've been wanting to do it for a long time, and then we're like, we could continue doing this, but, I mean, I don't know, do you want to, since we're doing music and movies, do you want to do something music-related next, just to show we're doing both, or do you want to stick to movies?
Yes, I have an idea of something music-related, because I want to do... Because, like, we're talking about something that a lot of people love, that we didn't particularly love. I want to talk about something music-related that a lot of people perhaps disliked, that I have a strange fascination towards.
Okay.
And I don't think you've heard this album. Or
Which
maybe
one?
I think I may have mentioned to you because it's such a...
Is it?
such
Don't
a
tell me
weird
it's on the
monument.
airplane over the sea.
No, a lot of people like that.
Oh, yeah, okay. I for some reason I thought you were going there, and I'm like, I have heard that album.
No, it's okay. No, what I'm thinking about is a record by R&B pop artist called Kid Cudi, and the album is called Speeding Bullet to Heaven.
Okay, well, I know Kid
And-
Cudi.
Yes, but
Heard
this
a
particular
album by him.
this particular album was his sort of, I guess you say, catastrophe, because it was him getting fed up with dwindling record sales, with dwindling relevance.
Sorry, what's it called?
and,
Kid Cudi.
Speeding Bullet to Heaven.
Okay, because I'm just researching.
This was his foray from R&B into grunge. I kid you not.
Interesting.
It's an R&B artist
Well-
attempting grunge, and it is a double album, and it's considered to be, as of probably 2018, its 2015 album is considered to be one of the worst pieces in modern music history, without exaggeration. And listening to it, you see why it's terrible, but also I think there's like a lot of bizarrely fascinating qualities that I'm really kind of eager to dissect in vivid detail.
Well, this should be
And
fun for me since hip hop is not my musical area of expertise. It's the genre I know probably one of the least about. But if it's a foray into grunge, I definitely know Absurdity. So, I just saw one of his songs was written by Mike Judge. So that's three of his songs are written by Mike Judge. So there you go.
There's a classic review done by YouTube phenomenon Anthony Melanfantano.
Oh,
and
yeah,
Needle
yeah.
Drop. Yes, and his total, what do you call it? Like when you just completely destroy something, rip off its head, suck out its blood, and just like leave it for the vultures. Like kind of review of it. It is beautiful. I wouldn't recommend listening to it until you listen to this album, because this album has a lot of weird surprises.
Okay,
And
so
they call it grunge
essentially
out,
what
yeah.
we're doing is, so this is an album that was universally hated that you really like, or you find shouldn't be as hated as it is.
I think I really like it, actually.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if I'd call it a good album.
It'd be interesting for me because at least for Inception, we both hated it equally already, and this is an album I've never heard before, so it's gonna be interesting for me to like listen to it and like come to talk about it. So I have no idea what my opinion of this album is.
I'll try not to guide it too much, but I'll be curious to see.
Guiding it a bit, like part of me is gonna be like, I'm gonna take the unpopular opinion just because, but I'll try. I forget which Kid Cudi album I have listened to. I don't think I liked it.
Man on the Moon.
Yeah, it was one of the Man on the Moon albums. I think I just don't remember which one. I didn't like it.
It was one that was like kind of like those Drake style kind of cloud rap things.
Yeah,
where it's
I didn't like it as hyperbole a bit. I was more just like, yeah, it's okay.
Well, Speeding Bullet to Heaven is, you can call it all the things, you can't call it okay. It's definitely not okay.
Well, now I'm absolutely
Right.
fat. I hope it's on Spotify, so it's easier for me to.
Yes, it is. Yeah, in all its glory. All right, so it's 229. Holy shit.
So that's the next review we're doing. Okay, cool.
All right, cool. Yeah. So thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Jonathan, for finally getting this done. I'm going to edit it beyond oblivion so I sound less
Stupid.
Yes. So I appreciate it.
Okay,
All right.
cool. That's good.
Good night, everybody.
See you next time.
See you too.
Bye.
Bye.